So if you look for people's reaction, just kind of talk a little bit.
I won't even see it.
All right. And here we are. It looks like we are live in the room. And let's give everybody a couple moments to start rolling in. This is going to be a very, very exciting day and an exciting webinar. And just to double check, Brian, are you here? We can hear you.
I'm here. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Beautiful.
Okay?
And so everybody that's in here, I'd like you to hit the number 1 in the chat box just to make sure that we can hear you, because obviously if we're going to do a webinar, we need to make sure that you folks can hear us. So just put a 1 into the chat box so I can see that you can definitely hear us. And it looks like we're seeing lots of 1s from, and I apologize, I'm half blind. So Kathleen and Flash and Marshall, and it looks like Ake and Steve and Brenda and Alan and Julie and John and Tomas and Keith. I don't know if I said that. Michael, Mark, Steven Ciceri. Holy cow! All the way from Pontiac High School. I saw that you picked up the biz cards this morning. So good to have you on here. That's awesome. Haven't seen Steven in oh gosh, I don't even know how long has it been now. 30 years almost. Been a long time since we were in high school. Dennis and looks like Tanuqua and Gaston and Martin. So a lot of people here, and it says you can hear us, and that's a good thing. So what we're going to do is it's just barely after 7, so I'm going to give it just a minute to allow people to continue to roll in, because we know that you know, sometimes it takes a few minutes for everybody to get in here. But I want to start off by showing you, I put together a little poll before we get started here, and I'm going to run that poll here so you guys can see it. And it's going to be, oh, you know what? I might not have saved that poll. I'm going to, oh, I deleted it. So I'm going to do is I'm going to put another poll in here while we're waiting for them, and it's going to ask you about maps. So have you ever sold maps as a service? I want to know how many of you have done that. And if you have sold maps as a service, you can either vote in the poll or put a 1 in the chat box so we know if you've done that before. It'd be interesting to see. Here we go. I'm going to publish that now. So you should be seeing a poll on there, and you can vote on whether or not. And so far it looks like yes, no, yes, no. And now the no's are starting to win it. So it's like a horse race here. I can actually see this in real time. It's kind of neat. And it looks like most of you so far are saying, no, you haven't done this. So this will be really good for you. For those of you that have, you're going to learn a whole heck of a lot. For those of you who don't know, I've actually been following Brian's training course for the last week and a half or so, because I'm trying to get better at maps. And I'm surprised at all the different things that are in there that never would have crossed my mind that make a big difference. And we're going to learn a lot about that right now. So Mark says that he's tried, and they've thanked me and gone back to their web person. Kathleen says she usually includes that as SEO in her SEO services. That's good. Tomas says he can't see or hear anything. Tomas, you may want to, well, if you can't hear me, I suppose telling you is not going to help much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to message you here. But if for some reason you can't see or you can't hear, try logging out and coming back in, and that should fix that there.
Can everybody else see okay?
It seems like, yeah, can everybody see? If you can see, give me a 2. Obviously, we asked if you could hear. I'm assuming you would have told me if you couldn't see, but I'm going to send this to Tomas. Try logging out. Come back in. Looks like everybody's giving us a 2. That's good.
All right.
Awesome. All right. So Gaston and Martin and Steve. Steve and Martin. We like that. Right together. Robert, Steven. All right. Good. It looks like everybody is doing fairly well when it comes to seeing and hearing. So without further ado, because we are about 4 minutes past, and I know it's late on the East Coast, so we don't want to keep everybody up too late. It's almost to the point of getting dark here, believe it or not. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest of honor tonight. He is pretty much the leading expert when it comes to not only Google Maps, but ranking in that 3 box, which if you don't know what that means, you're going to learn all about that. Basically, going back in history, Google used to put 7 people on page 1 under the maps, which was pretty cool. And now they only do 3, which means that if you are a local business, you have to do better than ever to get into onto that first page and get people calling you, because those guys in that 3-pack, they're getting all the calls, and you need to help those local businesses to get to that 3-pack so that they get the calls and they get the sales. And Brian is the expert when it comes to that. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, guys.
I'm really excited about this because I'm learning, as I go. So this is going to be a lot for me. I've got my pen and paper, and I am ready to take some notes here. So without wasting too much more time, why don't you jump right on in?
Awesome, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you, Ray. So for those of you who don't know me, we'll talk a little bit about that and kind of why my process is very, very different. But obviously what I put on the screen is, a very bold promise. But I want to show you exactly how to rank in the 3-pack of Google Maps every time, even if you've tried everything before and failed miserably. Okay, so I understand, totally big, bold promise. But by the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you that it's not as tough as it seems. It's really just seemingly disconnected. Things have shifted so much over the last couple of years that our ability to get ranked in the 3-pack is heavily dependent on a bunch of things that I'm going to show you today, okay? So really quickly, a little housekeeping. Do me a favor, turn off Skype, cell phones, all that good stuff. Throw your dog out of the room if you've got a dog. I've got 2 dogs that stare at me frequently. They'll just come up to my office window and look at me like, I know you fed me an hour ago, but isn't it round 2? And the reason is we're going to cover a ton of ground. Okay. And some of you may have seen some of my webinars in the past. I've got a bunch of new stuff in here because there's always changes going on. So I want you to be able to see the latest changes that have occurred in Google, how that impacts you, and then how you can actually benefit from it from a ranking standpoint. And more importantly, how you can benefit from a profit client getting standpoint. So I've got a free bonus for everybody who stays until the end. I've put together a high converting maps proposal and contract that you can use to lock down high paying clients and really more importantly get to yes much more quickly. So it's a combined proposal and contract set up the way that I've used it for many, many years that has a bunch of psychological triggers I don't have time to go into right now. Suffice it to say it is a very powerful way of presenting your proposal and getting somebody to say yes very, very quickly. So anyone who stays till the end, I'll make sure you get a link to that. All right, so really quickly, who the heck am I? Why would you bother listening to me? That's a totally fair question. So I've been a local marketer since 2006, really dating back to 2003, when I had to sink or swim with what was then a brand new program called Google AdWords. You've probably heard of it. It's brand new around 2003, and I had to figure out how essentially how I could go out and get new business. And that was the way to do it. So flash forward to 2006, I get a call from someone that had purchased a law firm doing $175,000 a year gross. Not much money, by the way, for a law firm. Just doing very, very poorly, essentially making less than he was making as an employee before he bothered moving his entire family out across the country. And so I partnered up with him. And in 4 years, we took it from $175,000 a year gross to $1.2 million. And then flash forward to today, he consistently does around $2 million a year from maps and SEO, right? So what we're going to be talking about today. So I kind of got the bug from there and thought, this is where I want to be. I want to start working with local clients. But I realized very quickly that maps is what mattered most. And I'm going to show you some recent case studies that you can use to talk to your clients about that will really drive this point home, right? And this may be a little bit of a shock to you when I show you these studies that have gone on, how people just don't even really visit websites that much anymore in local. So I'll show you exactly how that works. I went on to co-found Local Client Takeover with Mark Luckenbaugh, which is the largest SEO and marketing group in the world. We've got, I don't know, something like 25,000 members in Facebook, massive email list. Co-founded The Lab with Matt Diggity, Mark Luckenbaugh, Dino Gomez. I've trained over 500 agencies worldwide on maps, ranking processes. And more importantly, I've just have the knack for digging in and fixing listings, things that are wrong, where people were just too close to it, they can't see it. I'll get on the phone and consult with people and say, okay, here's what's going wrong. Let's fix this, this, and this. And I've had a lot of success over the years getting people to rank very quickly. Sought after speaker and consultant on all things maps. This is me on stage at the LCT Live Presents Seven Figures or Bust event in Vegas last year. You can see why my wife would smack the crap out of me from terrible, terrible posture. That's the way I stand. That's the way I stand most days. I don't know how many of you guys get the old computer neck nonstop. That's what I have nonstop from being on the computer 12 hours a day. So this is just the back of the room. That's my buddy Matt Diggity. It's my partner over at the lab. I'm getting ready to go on. So really quickly, here's some actual clients of mine that I've worked with over the years. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You can just see these are large population areas, high competition keywords. So we have divorce lawyers, we've got bankruptcy attorneys. Most of these people have never left the 3-pack since I started working with them. In the beginning, as Ray mentioned, it was a 7-pack. When it shrunk to a 3-pack, it got tougher and tougher. I'm going to show you why over the last couple of years, it's gotten even tougher than that due to a bunch of algorithmic updates that Google's done. So just a couple other niches: auto repair, psychologist, endodontist. Here's some actual consulting clients or people who've gone through my training who have just absolutely crushed it in maps. So we've got Matthew, who is a lead gen master. I don't know how many of you do actual lead generation versus client side work. Matthew goes out, ranks sites, gets maps listings set up, and then literally takes over the entire map pack. So if there's 3 spots available, that's his modus operandi, right? He'll go over and he'll take over 3 out of 3 spots or 2 out of 3 spots. Does it very, very well. Eddie, we'll talk about in a little bit. I'm going to show you how when you can identify problems that are occurring with people's maps listings, you can go out and get big money clients from it simply by being helpful. So that's exactly what Eddie did. He followed some info that I trained on and ran with it, basically. Essentially, you don't need what everybody else tells you. You don't need these fancy PowerPoint slide presentations and this giant presentation to get clients. Sometimes if you just go into helpful mode and show people what's going on with their listing, and I'm going to show you more importantly with their website. Okay, so your ability to get ranked in maps is about 80% what you do on your website, which will come as a shock to a lot of you. We're going to talk about that. You don't need a lot of this stuff. Just be helpful, point out issues. So I'm going to show you issues that go on. Here's another client, Floyd, got on a webinar, ended up selling one of his contacts a $15,000 contract an hour after the webinar, before he even knew how to do anything with maps. He just had the confidence after a webinar that we did to go out and rake in 15 grand. And then Oliver here did not have any testimonials of his own, hadn't signed up to work with me at all, walks in, talks to somebody, ends up getting you can see a handwritten contract, $1,500 a month. And I think he got a $600 setup fee. And all he did was say, I don't have any testimonials. I have 0 proof. Here's Brian's testimonials, but I'm going to be working with Brian. And he walked out with, a check and basically, I hate to do live math on webinars, but I think that's 18 grand a year, something like that. So, and we've got Danny here, $60,000 of map placement contracts in 2 weeks from learning from the training that we've done together. So one of the big themes we're going to be talking about throughout this presentation is I don't ever want you to get in the mode of ranking maps for maps ranking's sake. It should never be something that's, a way to just go out and show clients that, hey, I ranked you in maps. Now, this is great, right? Basically, you want to use it to go lock down high-paying clients, just like I showed you some of these kind of early screenshots. All right, so there's 2 big things today that I want you to walk away with. This is very, very important. And again, may come as a shock to people who do SEO, who sell SEO. You have to sort of, number one, stop buying into the hype that SEO alone is the answer to you or your clients' dead as doornail phones. Okay, and we'll talk about it. I mentioned the study that I'm going to show you where people are just simply not visiting websites like they used to. And the proof, as they say, is in the pudding, right? You can have organic rankings and be doing pretty well, yet clients' phones are not ringing, right? This is the quickest way to not get enough business or, unfortunately, get fired, because when their phones don't ring, what happens? They blame us as the SEO. Even though maybe we promised rankings, we didn't promise that their phone would ring. At the end of the day, the implied promise is you're going to get me more clients. You're going to get me more results. Well, that comes in the form of phone calls. All right. Number two, switch today to an understanding that the online world is 100% changed dramatically. If your clients are not on the 3-pack of Google Maps, guess what? They're losing massive amounts of business, cold hard cash to their competitors every single day. They may not know it yet. They know something's off. Okay. Their phone's not ringing. They realize that they're losing business. It might be your job to bridge the gap and point out why they're losing business. Again, we get into helpful problem-solving mode, and we can go pick up business. Maybe you do lead gen. Maybe you don't do client-side work. Same thing goes for you. If you're not in the 3-pack of maps, your competition's killing you. You're not getting enough calls. You're not able to go out and rank a site and then rent it out because there's not enough to show for it. So the 3-pack is 100% where it's at. Okay, so let's make it 3 things. So I said 2, let's make it 3. Your clients are also way smarter than you might think. If they aren't in the 3-pack, or maybe they were at one point, maybe they're in the 7-pack and even the 3-pack, but there's been a bunch of Google updates, guys, and maybe they got knocked out. That's happened to so many people, so many prospective clients were used to getting these phones ringing, and now they're not. Well, guess what they're doing? They're searching for somebody else to do their SEO. So here's the thing I want to let you in on is that whether you know it or not, your clients get calls and emails daily from other SEOs pitching them. And I guarantee you that they're whispering in your client's ear right now that they can get them out of the rut and pull them into the 3-pack. So it's very, very important to understand how to rank in the 3-pack, as we'll see here, okay? So the other thing that's super important that you're going to learn today is why most local SEOs are failing at maps and exactly what you can do to fix it. So the thing that I see the most is that SEOs seem to have a pretty good understanding of how to rank organically, okay? But when it comes to actual maps listings and getting ranked in maps, a lot of them either use shortcuts and get ranked and then end up finding themselves flagged or removed by Google, or their listing suspended. Or they can't connect the dots. They get ranked really well and they just can't figure out at all how to get into maps. And a lot of people are just doing well on the one hand, but they're not getting into maps, which guess what means no phone calls for your clients, which is the fastest way to what? Get fired, which you don't want to do. So here's what I want to cover. With all that in mind, I want to go through really quickly where we've come from, what's changed, why that matters to you. This is very important. This will take just a few minutes, but there's a payoff at the end. I want to show you exactly why understanding this can have big results for you. Number 2, Google thinks all of your clients' businesses are pizza restaurants. Okay, why do they do that? And I put other local stuff that I just can't bring myself to swear in a webinar. I apologize. I don't want Ray smacking me around. So you have to understand this, that Google is treating all of your clients' businesses, or even if you're in lead gen, just like you're a local pizza place. I'll explain exactly what that means, why you have to understand this and up your game to win the 3-pack war. We're going to get into why because I told you it's true trap is your worst enemy in ranking the 3-pack, plus what you can do about it. So you don't know what that means now. I'll explain it, but this is why SEOs are doing well organically, but not well in maps. All right, we're going to talk about the great organic shift over the past 2 years where websites hardly matter. I'm going to show you how you can position that for sales, essentially. And then we'll get into my 3-step plan to success every time. Basically, the 3 big things that Google is always looking for to decide whether to rank you and whether you're the most relevant player or your competition is. So you want to stick around to see that. So really quickly, I'm going to spend just a few minutes. Where did maps even evolve from? Why is that important to you? So we went from 6 years of predictability with what was known as the blended algorithm to what I say seeming unpredictability with a Google algorithmic update known as Possum. Some of you are familiar with it. Some of you might not be. And then what was sort of a patch to the Possum update called the Hawk update in August. So let's talk about the predictability first, and then we'll dive into Possum and Hawk. So what's the blended algorithm? I'm going to show you some quick examples of what I mean. all you need to know about what the blended algorithm was essentially, it was a vote of confidence from Google for at least 6 years, where Google said, hey, if you're ranking very well organically, you must be trustworthy. Therefore, we are going to blend together the algorithm that controls maps with the algorithm that controls just straight organic rankings on page 1 of Google, outside of the maps listings. We're going to blend those two together because you must be trustworthy. If you made your way to the top, your actual website, you must be trustworthy in some way. So they blended those together, and magically you would start to appear in the 7-pack, and then when that was taken away and turned into a 3-pack, you would appear in the 3-pack with very little variation. Okay, there was some variation here and there in the services niche, but anytime you got into more competitive cities, more competitive niches, it was almost a certainty that you had to be ranked at or near the top of page 1 to get into maps. So let me run you through some quick examples. Your job here is type into the chat whether you can see a blended algorithm in play, yes or no. In other words, the people that are in the 3-pack, are they influenced by where they're ranking organically down here? All right, so we've got Sarasota Chiropractic, Florida Chiropractic, Joseph M. Army. Question to you is, how much is that blended algorithm in play? So I put yes on this one. Sarasota Chiropractic lines up with the number 1 listing right there. Joseph M. Army lines up with the number 3 listing. Right? What about people at Florida Chiropractic and Rehabilitation Clinics in the middle? Kind of. Okay, they're a little further down on page 1, but essentially all 3 of these players are on page 1, 2 of them at the very top. So what does that mean? That means for this particular search, and every search varies dramatically, it's still being kind of controlled by that blended algorithm. That means you might have to be on your game in terms of ranking organically to get into maps still. But I'm going to show you how this has become disconnected. So let's use a dentist example. For Sarasota Dental Group, Smile Sarasota, Bayview Dental, your job is to just answer yes or no in the chat. Are you seeing any pattern where their ability to be ranked in the 3-pack is driven or controlled by where they're ranked organically? So let's look at Sarasota Dental. Yes, right? It's not a 1-to-1 correlation. It's not that they're number 1 in maps and number 1 organically. Sometimes it gets pushed down a little bit. But you can see they're number 3 organically and they're in maps. What about Smile Sarasota? I put yes also. Okay, but they're a little further down page 1. So what about Bayview Dental? All right, no, again, I'm not going to spell that out for you, but they're off on page 3. So the question becomes how and why. How did they make their way into the 3-pack of maps being off on page 3? All right, so let's talk about this. So a very common result that started to occur with the blended algorithm is that it's breaking up, where it was intact for 6 years and heavily influenced how you got into maps. Now it's been broken up. We're starting to see less and less of that correlation between where you rank organically and whether you rank in maps. So what in the world does this have to do with you? This becomes a big opportunity shift where now you can actually rank in maps sometimes in as little as 30 days. And more importantly, start generating phone calls. So even if your site, just to put this in perspective, may take another 6 months, 9 months, a year to rank organically, which, by the way, having done SEO for years and years and years, this is not uncommon. It can take 6 to 9 months or longer to rank a site organically. It's just taking longer and longer. Yet, because of this breakup of the blended algorithm, we have this chance to get into maps sometimes in 30 days. So let me show you a client of mine, Dimitri, who proves this point. 1-month-old website, already getting 3 to 5 leads a day, actual phone calls. And it may take Dimitri another 6 months, 9 months to actually get ranking organically. So that becomes very, very important. You're able to get there much faster. All right, let's talk about that study I was referring to earlier and how you can maybe use this to talk to your clients a little bit. A lot of our clients, and really a lot of SEOs that I meet, working with SEOs every single day, still have sort of this notion that organic rankings matter the most because somebody's going to land on your website. They're going to then convert into whatever, a phone call, a web submission, something like that, form submission. Unfortunately, nothing could be further from the truth. That was true several years ago. Every year, what we're seeing is a complete shift away from that. So here's what I want you to remember, that we live in an entirely review-based society, a review-oriented society. People don't make decisions unless and until they read reviews about you. All right. And it used to be they would read reviews and then they would go and they would visit your website. Then they would, further sort of hone in on their decision. Should they hire you? Should they not? Whatever. All right. Let me show you what's going on here and the studies that are starting to prove this. Being in the 3-pack is the most visible place your client can be. From an online real estate perspective, what do you see first? You see maps listings at the top. You see some ads, obviously, but maps stands out like a sore thumb. And then essentially, websites are being pushed down further and further on page 1, not just under maps, but under directory sites. So we'll talk more about why that's the case when we talk about why being an important brand in the eyes of Google is so important. But let's just start with the premise that being in the 3-pack is literally the most visible place you can be in local. All right. Second, consumer behaviors radically change. They're visiting websites less and less every single year. Instead, here's the pattern. They see a 3-pack listing, they read reviews and either call directly from maps, and it depends on the type of client, type of service that they perform, or they tend to read more reviews and then call later. So let's say they see your Google reviews first. Maybe they decide, okay, well, I'm not ready yet. Let's go look up the brand name. And then they might read something on Yelp, whatever, Angie's List, Home Advisor, doesn't matter. So, and sometimes they'll read up to 9 more sets of reviews. Notice what I didn't say. They're not going to the website that much. So that's what the key findings are starting to show. So when you get people who are, you're out there competing daily with people who are trying to sell SEO and rankings for ranking's sake. If you can go in with data like this and just say, look, here's what matters the most: visibility, being in the 3-pack, and having a solid review process. So call it what you want: reputation management, reputation marketing, a little bit different things. The two go hand in hand and create a powerhouse service that you can charge big money for, because people are simply not visiting websites as much as they used to, right? So 17% fewer people will actually visit a business website after reading a good review in 2017 than 2016. And the number of consumers who would visit a business as their next step, actually do drop-ins on a business, has grown 10 to 17% over the year. 10% of consumers now contact a business directly after reading a positive review. So this becomes a positioning point for you where you can intelligently tell business owners, look, the studies are starting to show that if you're not in maps, you're just not going to do well. I mean, if we're seeing this kind of change just in 1 year, and there was a slightly smaller change from 2015 to 2016, imagine what happens between 2018 and 2019. All right, and you can just take a look at this Bright Local study that proves all this stuff out. They do these studies every year, so that's what you need to understand that is really going on to convey to a potential client. So some of you who might do home services, you'll want to pay particular attention to what I'm going to talk about next. So I get the question of, will there even be an organic or unpaid 3-pack, a maps pack, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it the 3-box. So if you're not familiar with that, obviously that's the 3-pack we're talking about, that shows up first, that will show an at-a-glance view of the client's business, reviews, all of that. Question is, will there still be one with Google Home Services rolling out? So what's Home Services? Home Services is Google getting in on the action from a paid perspective. Think of it as Google AdWords for maps. So essentially what they've done, and I'll show you in a second, is they've created their own version of the 3-pack in a horizontal manner that sits above AdWords. And they put, and I put this in quotes, they put Google Guaranteed. So I want to talk to you about why this Google Guaranteed Home Services not why, how it impacts you and what you have to do really to up your game if you want to stand a chance to win in the 3-pack, especially if you work with service-oriented clients, plumbers, HVAC, contractors, roofers, whatever, or maybe you do pay-per-lead, rank and rent, sell calls, and you do this stuff yourself. I'm going to show you there's a challenge going on. So here's what it looks like. Do you see that? It's kind of a horizontal presentation of the 3-pack. So they show 3 listings. It's starting to roll out across the services industry in about 5 different niches all across the country, slowly but surely. And you can see that little check mark, Google Guaranteed. All right, so let me show you something really quickly. I want you to type yes or type something into the chat if you can spot what's going on here. See these giant arrows pointing at this organic listing. Okay, so I've got the paid listings up top with Google Guaranteed, and then you see right below it the map that says San Francisco. So here's the actual organic unpaid 3-pack or 3-box, whatever you want to call it. Do you notice anything about this? Okay, so here's what's going on. For years, Google said if you do any kind of service work, you go to the customer, they don't come to you. Therefore, hide your address. Do not show your address. Right? Yet Google seems to be rewarding people who actually show their address suddenly. Okay, and why is that so? All right, and this is speculation a little bit on my part, but I think it's well-founded speculation. Google has shot themselves in the foot a little bit with Google Guaranteed. On the one hand, they're trying to convey to the consumer that, hey, yes, we've guaranteed these 3 people here, meaning that we vetted them, they're a real company, all this other stuff. That would be incongruent if there was a bunch of lead gen people here who hide their addresses and they're spammier listings. So I think what they're doing is they're starting to make it more congruent where they're only showing people who actually don't need to hide their addresses because they are larger shops. They're more trustworthy businesses. So in other words, it's not, Bob the plumber or somebody who's running one van out of a condo in San Francisco. It's larger plumbing companies who actually have addresses. Maybe they have an industrial space. Maybe they actually have a call center there. So it's Google's way of reconciling, hey, we just said you guys are guaranteed, but at the same time not showing spammy listings that hide their address, because for years it typically meant that those were lead gen companies. So they're essentially showing more trustworthy companies. Sorry, I'm just taking a quick sip of water here. So the question becomes, will there be a 3-pack, an unpaid 3-pack for the services industry? Answer, in my very strong opinion, 100% yes. Google has sort of dangled the carrot in front of the consumer for so long with this as the structure, and the fact that less people actually respond to paid ads than they do organic. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, that I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's been around for 9 years, probably, maps, almost 10 years. People have grown used to it. They've grown used to reading reviews. And as I talked about earlier, what's changed? Especially over the last couple of years, we've entirely moved to a review-based society where it would not be a good user experience for somebody to land on Google's website and not see a 3-pack where they can figure out what are these businesses about and only see a paid version that Google guarantees. It's more suspect. That makes sense. Okay, so got to keep that in mind. I think it's always going to be around some version of it, but you have to know how to really up your game to be able to do well in this 3-pack, especially with all the changes. So let's talk about a massive, massive change that occurred. It's been about 1.5 years now. But I'm going to show you how this kind of updated with what was known as the Hawk update. And I want you to understand this because it's important to understand that Google literally is treating every business like it sells pizza. Okay. So what do I mean by that? There's 5 changes that occurred with Possum, but lucky for us, and I'm being 100% facetious here, only 3 of them are extremely major, and all three have one thing in common. 3 things, actually, just like real estate: location, location, location. So let's talk about pizza, okay? Excuse me. All right, so possum change number one is the location of the searcher, especially on a mobile device, matters more than ever. So unless you can convince Google otherwise, and we'll talk more about that later, Google literally is treating all your clients like a pizza place. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. If I'm sitting out, let's say I'm out at 6 o'clock at night, I'm getting an oil change, I'm doing something, and I've got a mobile device, which, is pretty typical of everybody. And I decide, hey, I'm hungry, I want pizza. And I type into Google, pizza near me, or pizza zip code, pizza plus city. It would make perfect sense for Google to show me locations of pizza places that are near me, nearby, within a couple minutes, a couple miles. I don't feel like driving across town. I'm hungry at 6 o'clock. I don't want to drive across town. If Google showed me, this is the top rated place that's 30 minutes from here, and I go there and now there's a 20-minute wait, then I have to wait 20 minutes to get my pizza. No, I'm hungry. It makes sense, right? Here's the problem with that. Let's shift gears and use a different example. Let's say that I'm being audited or something by the IRS. There's something much more serious than pizza. I'm still sitting in the oil change place at 6 o'clock. I'm worried to death, and I need to figure out, I need a good lawyer, a good accountant, somebody very quickly. And I type in the exact same search, only now it's, whatever. It's, tax auditor plus city, tax lawyer plus city. Guess what Google's doing? Because the location of the searcher on a mobile device matters more than ever, they started to serve up under Possum results that were located right around the corner from me. That does me no good. So do you understand the distinction of that? I don't really care if you're the closest. If I've got a serious problem, I care if you're the best. Yet Google is only concerned with the closest under Possum. So what does that mean to you? It means that if you work with clients, you would be faced with a situation where you might think that they're ranked all over town, and they might only be ranking according to where somebody actually performs the search on their mobile device. I'm going to show you how we can combat some of this. And by the way, this is not news to me or really anybody. This goes back to testing that Google did for 2 or 3 years prior to Possum rolling out, in these fun phone calls I would get. So I would get people who would say, hey, Brian, I was sitting on my desktop computer, I'm ranking for all these keywords in maps, and then I went down to my parking lot. Now I'm not showing up on my mobile phone. What's going on? And then I drove across town. Now I'm showing up again. What's going on? Now I just got home. Now I'm not on maps again. What's up? So at first, I figured no big deal. Then I realized, after getting a bunch of these phone calls from clients in a week, 10-day period, something was being tweaked in Google. And I figured out very quickly that the desktop results were staying pretty stagnant. The mobile results were varying a lot. So I knew they were testing proximity of the searcher. And this is the biggest change that occurred. All right, so, excuse me, part of the change that also occurred is a massive, I should have put that in all caps, disconnection in what's shown on desktop versus mobile network. So when you're actually connected to, let's say it's the T-Mobile network versus connected to Wi-Fi. So a lot of times, if you read anything on Possum, or if you've in the past have read anything on the Possum update, people don't talk about what I'm about to show you. So in the end, what really matters is what searchers in town see, not what we see, not what reporting tools report on. None of those can be 100% accurate. So I do want you to see this in action, because it's something that your clients are going to face. It's something that you're going to be able to, you need to understand how to fix this, how to convince Google you're relevant in all parts of town, not just where the search originates from. All right, so let me flip slides here. I'm going to take another quick sip of water. Sorry, guys, my voice is going a little bit. So here's what I did. Here's the setup. I decided to do a little experiment where, and I did this with a bunch of different keyword terms, but I'll keep it short and show you one. The idea was, let's show results on, or let's search for a set of keywords on desktop, and then Let's do the same thing on mobile, connected to the exact same Wi-Fi, sitting in the exact same chair. Okay, so it's me. What you're about to see is me not moving a square inch. It's desktop to mobile, being on Wi-Fi, same Wi-Fi, by the way. And then I want to see what happened if I disconnected from the Wi-Fi and got on the network. Would I get a different result, yes or no? So we have 3 players in the 3-pack. Las Vegas Chiropractic Associates, 1 star. I'd be kind of frightened to go there and get my neck cracked. Chiropractic Healing Center, McKay Chiropractic. So this is desktop. All right, here's me not moving an inch. All I did was switch over to my mobile phone, sitting in the same chair, connected to the same Wi-Fi. Do you guys see the difference here? Totally different MapsPack results. Now we have Fallon Chiropractic, Schleissner, Kelly. I didn't move an inch. Why is that going on? So then I disconnected from Wi-Fi, went on to the T-Mobile network. You can see there. Now we've got 3 different results. Our 1-star neck crackers are back, but now we have 2 different results. Okay, I haven't moved yet. 2 different results. The Joint Chiropractic, Lake Mead Chiropractic. So then I decided, what if I move a little bit across town? So I've got an office that's about 7 minutes away. That's exactly what I did. Would I get a different result? So we can see some of the people are back again. The 3rd result is totally different. And what I started to find was I could repeat this. I could go 3 minutes around the corner and get a different set of results, and 3 minutes around the corner and get a different set of results. So not only is it proof that, where I search from on a mobile device, as I get closer to what I'm searching for, I'm going to see different results, as I mentioned, being the big shift in Possum. The other thing is a big disconnection in the way that we see desktop, mobile, Wi-Fi, mobile network, moving across town on the mobile network. The idea here is that in some cases, there might be 50 different results that occur for the exact same keyword term, depending on the device that I use, where I'm searching from, all sorts, whether I'm on Wi-Fi, non-Wi-Fi. There's so many different factors. So at this point, you might be saying, oh my God, this seems so confusing. How do I ever win at this game? I'm going to show you how you can win at this. I just want you to understand that most people don't identify these things as even being a problem. When you can identify problems, what did we talk about earlier? You can be the helpful solution to that problem. Most clients, even if they were doing well in maps, may have no idea that this is going on, yet they understand one thing: their phones have died down. The volume has died down tremendously because Google's showing 50 different results across town. I'm going to show you how we can control this a little bit. All right, so really quickly, Possum changes 2 and 3. The other thing that you really need to understand, and this is, I showed you a screenshot of Eddie earlier, who used this filtering technique I'm going to tell you about to go land a client. So what's filtering? Under Possum, Google started to decide that it wasn't a good user experience to show, let's say, 4 of somebody in the same category. Let's say there's 4 personal injury lawyers who happen to be in the same building. They don't actually share an office. They don't share a brand name. They could be, let's say it's a 12-story office building. They each have their own floor, totally different law firms. They all do personal injury. Google decided, based on Possum, based on proximity of the searcher in relation to the search, as though people are driving around looking for personal injury lawyers, they might just need one very quickly from crashing. They decided it doesn't make sense. It's not a good user experience to show 4 of the same personal injury lawyers at the same address. That might make sense if they were actually at the same address. They're just in the same building, not the same suite number. Yet Google would filter them out. All right, what is filtering? Filtering is if you go to the 3-pack, and underneath the 3-pack, there's a thing called More Places. If you clicked on More Places and you circulated your way through More Places, all the different pages, and you still don't see a client, there's a little plus and minus tab on the right-hand side. Okay, if you hit that little plus sign, the zoom sign, one time, and suddenly that client shows up, they're filtered, okay? So you're probably saying, well, what do you mean filtered? That just means that they're not ranking. Exactly. Here's the problem. Google wants us, they lull us into this belief that no, they're ranking. We just decided not to show them. What's the difference, right? If they're not being shown, they're as good as dead. They're as good as playing dead. That's where I think the whole Possum algorithm name came from. Filtering hides that person. And then you can click on the little plus or zoom sign and suddenly show them. Nobody in their right mind, no consumer is going, oh, okay, well, I don't see any more choices here, so let me just hit that plus sign. Nobody knows to do that. But this is one way that you can use to go out and get big money clients by being helpful. You can literally show somebody, yeah, I know what's going on. You're being filtered in 3 minutes just by doing a little research, okay? The other thing is location of the city center used to be a big, big issue. In order to get ranked in maps for many years, Google's algorithm was very dumb. The only way they could figure out that you were in the city that you told them you were in was that you were near the city center, which makes no sense at all. So the Possum algorithm corrected some of that by you not having to be in the exact city center. You could be on the outskirts and maybe get thrown in. All right. So let me ask you a question. Are you sensing a pattern here? If you're sensing a pattern of what these 3 changes that I've talked about lead to, type it in the chat. What are you sensing? All right, exactly. It's all geo, location driven. Every single change is location driven on Possum. So Google's trying to create a much better user experience and have sort of failed. They've dialed it back with what's called the Hawk, H-A-W-K update in August of 2017, meaning that the filtering process is not as bad as it used to be. However, it's still there. There's a lot of people that are still filtered. And what is filtering? As good as not there. You might as well not rank. Okay, so how does understanding this benefit you? Again, identify the problem equals big money clients. Let me give you one example, which is me. I landed a big money client from this exact issue. I had a guy call me who has a shop in New York City. He's used to his phone ringing off the hook all day, every day for years. And suddenly, Possum hits, no phone calls, none. Literally his business was in danger of failing. That's how bad it got. All right. He'd gone to 3 other maps experts, none of whom could identify what was even going on. They're like, yeah, I think it might be this. I think it might be this. We get on the phone together, and in 3 minutes, I did exactly what I just taught you to do. I just searched for him. He wasn't there. Clicked on the plus sign. He was there. Told him, you're filtered. Here's what this means. Here's what we need to do about it. So I went into helpful mode. Guess what happened at the end of that? $3,000 client, just from being helpful. Okay. So, and this is not a one-off situation. We've got lots and lots of our students who use these techniques to do what we talked about. You don't want to rank maps for maps ranking purposes. Use it to go land clients, and then understand that you can back it up by being able to rank maps. Okay, here's Eddie. I showed you earlier. Same thing. So what I just talked about, that unfiltering trick, that's what he used. He went out and got his very first client, literally with no sales, he says no fancy dancy prep, PowerPoint. He just showed the client what was going on. Just being helpful lands a client. All right. So do me a favor, stick around, because we still have part 2 of our training coming up, which is going to include the why I told you it's true trap and why it's your worst enemy. This is literally why local SEOs might be doing well organically, but they're failing at SEO. And we're going to talk about my 3-step plan to success every time. The 3 big things that Google looks for when it comes to whether they should rank you over somebody else. This is massive. Also, at the very end of the presentation, anyone who sticks around is going to get access to the link that I talked about, which is a high converting combination maps proposal and contract that leads to yeses way sooner. You don't have to chase down clients like you would using a traditional method with the way that I've set this up and used it in my own agency. All right. So really quickly, I know for some of you time is super short, especially on the East Coast. It's getting late. I know I hope you got a lot out of the first half of the training, or at least it was eye-opening. All right, we're going to talk about some ways to solve these problems coming up in part 2. I wanted to show you the different things that are going on that really almost no maps person is even talking about. They just don't even think that these things exist or are a problem. And again, identify the problem, you can get clients. So we'll talk about how you solve a lot of these problems in the second half of the training. In the first half, I wanted to make sure that I put a lot of info in. Obviously, I've got a lot more coming up. So let me ask you a question. Are you guys motivated? It sounds like when Ray did a poll at the beginning, a lot of you aren't selling maps. And I want to know why. Do you think that this type of program, based on what I've shown you, is something that could work for you? And if so, type yes in the chat. And Ray, I can't see the chat, so maybe you can let me know if people
I can definitely do that for you. And I'll be the first one to throw out a big yes there because, honestly, the Maps service is not something that I had started offering, at least not as a standalone, until probably about 3 weeks ago or so. And I've already picked up a handful of clients just by offering this. In fact, while you were talking about some of these things, I was checking on one of them who was filtered, and she is starting to show up now, so that's good.
Nice. Yeah, and that's the big thing, is that most people don't have the confidence to go and sell maps because it seems so disconnected. It seems like it's very tough to actually deliver results on. Whereas organic, it can take a while, but there's certain things that we do to rank organically that if we follow those steps, eventually we're going to probably rank, whereas maps seems very disconnected. So a lot of people don't have the confidence to sell it. What I want to show you now is how you can gain that confidence.
Nice.
It's really
looks like everybody's ready for that, because I've got a ton of yeses from Alan and Edward and John and Steve and Julie and Ake and Dennis and Gaston and Greg and Paulo and Tony and Al and Austin and a whole bunch of other people here. So
awesome. That's great. All right, guys. So I've shown you a few things so far that can dramatically increase your ability to get 3-pack rankings fast. Mainly being able to figure out that these things are going on. If you can't even figure out what's going on, it's hard to solve the problem. But also how really gaining an understanding of maps can lead to big dollar clients. Understanding problems, understanding changes that Google frequently throws at us. So what would that mean to you? If you got 5 new clients, you kept 5 additional clients who most likely, as I mentioned earlier, based on these surveys we've seen, they're going to go somewhere else. If you're not making their phone ring, they're probably going somewhere else. So what would it mean if you could actually say, no, I can get 5 new clients, I can keep 5 clients happy and make them stick around because now I can make the phone ring. Sometimes you can even go out and get, they were working with other SEOs who can't perform the service, and now you pick up brand new clients because the person before you couldn't get results like this. What would that mean to you? So before we get back into part 2 of the program or the training, I'm going to talk to you about my training program that I have. Many of you have expressed an interest in how you can take this further to really learn how to rank in maps the right way. And notice I did say the right way for a reason. There's tons of outdated maps trainings out there that just simply don't work. Maps is an ever-evolving beast, so to speak. Google is constantly shifting the algorithm. And so if you don't keep up with those changes, it's very hard to understand what's going on and what really works. So what I'm about to show you has been 100% battle tested, not only with my clients, so for years with my own clients, and then before I ever created this program that I'm going to show you, my consulting clients. So I wanted to make sure it was 100% beta tested with consulting clients to make sure that everything that I knew worked with my clients also worked for them. Once we got that down, we ended up creating a program that's gone on to help over 1,100 people. Gone through this program. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So if what I'm about to show you had no cost to you today, do you believe that if you went through it, you could have results like the ones that I showed earlier? I showed you some Maps pack rankings that I have for my clients. I showed you consulting clients. I'm going to show you some more people that have gone through this training. Do you believe that it could actually help you, even if it had no cost? If that's true, then the only reason not to get started is because you don't have the money. And maybe we can do something about that when we get there. So before I go over the program, let me go through the usual suspects, okay? It's definitely not for everybody. You have to be serious about this. If you're kind of a dabbler, probably not for you. If you kind of go from course to course to course and think that you're going to, land on that one big thing, probably not for you. You got to be serious about this. You need to be able to get big results and want to get big results. And again, not MAPS rankings for ranking's sake, to go out and get clients. And there will be a small investment, and I'm going to make it super, super easy. And as I mentioned, some of you can get access for no money up front. My job today is to show you more details and make it as easy as possible to get started right away. So the other thing, you're going to need to commit a little time, 2 to 3 hours a week for a few weeks, going through these over-the-shoulder videos that I'm going to talk about. Because what I'm not offering is push-button software. It simply does not exist. There are people out there who will try to peddle push-button software for maps, and my advice to you with that is just good luck. It just does not exist. You can't trick Google through software programs. There is a distinct process to this. I make it very easy to understand, but you do need to commit some time. If you're not willing to invest a little time, it's probably not for you either. The other thing is I don't want any money from you unless and until you're committed to getting an ROI, return on investment. You have to be fully committed to going through the full training. What I want you to become a complete expert in what really brings in the money. And by the way, it keeps it coming in maps. SEO is a dying breed. I've shown you that. And it's just going to continue to die. I'm not saying don't sell SEO. I'm saying don't lead with SEO. All right? Unless you've got your pitch down super, super well to the point where you can sell SEO all day long, great. For most people, you're competing with very low dollar services, people with huge expectations, clients who want results much sooner than later, which you can deliver on maps, which is becoming harder and harder with SEO. So don't lead with SEO. Sell maps, add SEO on as an additional service. The other thing is the whole process. I get this question a bunch, because a lot of people say, hey, can I get ranked in 10 days or 30 days? Answer, sometimes. In general, here's what I've seen. Full disclosure, 60 to 90 days is more typical, all right, to get good results. You need some time to go through the program, let it sink in, let it absorb, and figure out, okay, how do I implement this stuff the right way? Once you get your feet wet, then it's kind of game on. So every person that I've shown you so far, took them 60 or 90 days, they started getting great results. I've had people get overnight results. I've had people get results in 10 days. I'm just letting you know it's not common. 60 to 90 days is more common. The other thing is your results may vary depending on how carefully you implement the steps in the training. And there's always a random ranking factor in play with Google that neither myself nor anyone else can control. It's part of their patent. It's part of the algorithm where just certain sites, certain maps listings might not make it. Okay, and it's there literally to discourage SEOs. But for every one that doesn't make it, you can go out and have 10 that will. So I just need you to understand that there is a random ranking factor. So I want to introduce to you Maps Liftoff Agency Black. What is Agency Black? And I put it's a $17.97 value. That is not a made-up value at all. That's exactly what I charge consulting clients for 2 years to conduct this live over the phone. So we used to do these 3 and 4 hour phone training sessions where I would run them through exactly what I've created here in an over-the-shoulder video training course. This is even better, though, because you're going to gain the insight of every consulting client that I've worked with, every type of site, whether it's a service business, whether it's a physical location business, professionals, non-professionals. I've done it all. I've seen it all. I've worked with it all. And on a consulting basis, what I did is I distilled all of it down into different segments inside of Agency Black that will teach you how to rank any site, any listing. Whereas the people that I did it for over the phone, we were typically talking about one niche because we only had so much time. So I can go into much more depth. And if you only work with service clients, that's fine. You go through the core parts of the training, and then once you have a good understanding down, maybe you need to go back to the service area and how that differs, how the setup of the site differs. Okay, so there's 40 over-the-shoulder videos the minute that you log in. And it's going to walk you through what not only we've done for our clients, for our consulting clients, but hundreds of other clients who've gone through the program have used to rank thousands of listings in the 3-pack. All right. Literally 1,100 people have skyrocketed their map skills, $17.97 value. I've got a bunch of bonuses. I'm going to run through these really quickly so we can get back into the second part of the training. So I'm going to give you my geolocation on-site domination training. What is that? Everybody was typing in the chat that the biggest changes that have occurred with Possum, with Hawk, are geographic-based changes. You have to convince Google that you are the most geographically relevant. So what I do in this bonus is I walk you through the secret sauce of how to be the most geographically relevant. You learn exactly how I structure out geographically relevant supporting pages on your site, where you put them, where they should link to, total maps domination. I say that, and I mean it literally, because nobody except my top paying consulting clients have really seen the setup before, and they love it because it's one of the fastest ways to crush maps. Geo is almost everything. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that in part 2 of the training. Bonus 2, secret maps keyword multiplier training, $9.97 value. What I want to show you in this bonus is my exact method to getting dozens and sometimes hundreds of keyword variations ranked on maps. So we already talked about that maps is where it's at. If you're not there, your phone's probably not ringing. Your clients' phones are probably not ringing. Here's the problem. Most people settle for a couple keywords ranking in maps. They call it a day. As we've seen, you might have a couple keywords, but you might only also be showing up for those couple keywords in relation to where the search on a mobile device originates and not across town. So what I'm going to show you here is how we can literally use these maps triggers, that I call them, to force dozens and sometimes hundreds of keyword variation terms into maps. Okay, so that's what makes the phone really ring, is when if there's 15 or 20 variations of a keyword and you're only ranking for one of them, you're not doing very well. But if you're ranking for, let's say 12 out of the 15 in a bunch of different parts of the city, it's game on. You're ranking a lot better. You're doing very, very well. Okay. The other thing is bonus 3, on-site supporting page superstructure. Why do most sites fail to rank? They don't prove it to Google, as I'm going to talk about in part 2 of the training. This is one of the biggest ways that people don't prove it. They don't set up what I refer to as an on-site supporting page superstructure. So in this bonus, I walk you through how I build out these monster authority sites in a very short period of time. And I'm not talking about those mass site builders or any of that stuff. I'm talking about the exact process that I use to put highly relevant content in place that not only builds out a very authoritative site to help you organically rank, but provides all of the proper signals that Google needs to see to decide to show you in maps versus somebody else. All right, so this is huge. I'm going to talk about how I tap into the power of geo, niche, and suburb pages to not only prove it to Google, but get ranked also in surrounding areas. All right, so that's important too. Suburbs are a huge missed opportunity. I'm going to show you how to do that. Bonus 4, services site complete setup. If you work in the services niche, I already told you it's becoming a little more troublesome with home services. The other thing is Google lies to you. They say, hey, set a service radius, and they make you think that magically you are going to appear in maps throughout that radius. That's not the case anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you in this bonus my exact process for crushing service niches every time, plus my proven, previously not revealed reverse method for really making GMB believe you service everywhere that you tell them you do in your radius. And it's really powerful if you work with plumbers, roofers, anybody like that. We talked about Possum, okay? I told you about my landing a $3,000 client from New York whose phone stopped ringing. I showed you Eddie, who got a client just based off identifying the problem. How do you solve the problem? This goes through exactly how. So I carved it out as a bonus because I want you to be able to, in one spot, go through a little video and have a checklist that says, here's what you need to do step by step to get somebody unfiltered very, very quickly. And I think Ray mentioned that he got one of his recent clients unfiltered or is working on getting them unfiltered. So we talked about a lot of sites are filtered even after Hawk. Did very little to relieve what it was supposed to relieve, which was the filtering problem that was occurring. We talked about being hidden is as good as not there. What I've done is crack the code on how to get unfiltered, stay unfiltered, all this different stuff. And it's really top level information that I taught to my high-end consulting clients. Bonus 6, 3-pronged network setup for massive relevancy and fast rankings. So again, we're going to talk about why you have to prove to Google that you're worthy. All right. It sounds like Wayne's World or something like that. I'm going to show you how this works in a minute. But in this bonus, I'm going to walk you through what I do for every single site every time off-site. Okay, I set up these little mini networks to prove to Google that we are, in fact, worthy, that we're the most relevant. Almost nobody sets these up, and they're missing a huge opportunity. I've tested it for over 4 years. It works every single time. I'm going to show you exactly what to do. Bonus 7, how many of you hate cold calling? I hated it. I've never gotten a client in my life from cold calling, and I'm not saying it's bad. I market to people and then get clients reaching out to me pre-motivated, pre-interested, pre-sold, get them on a list, and then work to convert them. When you do that, you can use the swipe of this copy that I'm going to hand you to get them to say yes, to essentially sell it as a standalone service, a foot in the door service, you name it. So bonus 8, access to the Agency Black private Facebook group, $9.97 value. As soon as you gain access to Agency Black, you're going to be added to the private Facebook members only area. Cool part is that you'll be able to interact with hundreds of other Agency Black members, bounce ideas off each other, and learn from the questions that you may not have thought to ask. It's a very interactive group. People are in there every single day asking questions, helping each other. It's turned into a really great community for you. Bonus 9, library of past Ask Me Anything Q&A sessions. So for several months, we did a bunch of Q&A sessions. And I built up a library of those where if you've got questions that are maybe something's just not clicking for you, you can go into these Q&A sessions and go through them. And a lot of times that question's been answered directly by me during these sessions. So that will help you kind of stay unstuck, get unstuck if you are stuck on some concept or something. Bonus 10. So this is the last one. I want you to be able to also eavesdrop on a private webinar that I do with my exclusive members only Accelerate Mastermind group, $397 value. So I want you to be able to listen in on an exclusive session I did where I started the process of showing them how they can position themselves as the go-to maps expert doing what? Not selling SEO, essentially being the person that is positioning themselves to sell and deliver phone calls and leads in a particular niche. You can quickly distinguish yourself and get a ton of sales that way, but you have to understand how to position yourself. All right, so we haven't even talked about rank and rent properties. We don't even have time for that. Pay per lead. Imagine the number of phone calls if you do lead gen at all for pay per lead, rank and rent, all this stuff by following the Agency Black training. So if what I told you before, your ability to get new clients, keep more clients, raise your prices, would it all be worth a value of $66.73? I added it up, and that's the total value. Of course, assuming you have the money. All right. So if that's the case, what that means is that you would want the program no matter what. It's about the investment cost. Can you afford it or not? And again, I told you I'm going to make it easy on you. So here's the value. Here's the final public sales price, which you're not going to pay, by the way, is $997. All right. So that's the price that we're going to go to the public with in the future, and possibly even higher than that. So you can see the value of all the stuff that you get, Agency Black plus all the bonuses. Total value is $66.73. You're going to save $56.76. So the final public price, again, you're not going to pay that, $997. I've got a special on the webinar. So on this webinar, you can save an additional $500. And once you go through the program, you're going to be a leader in the industry. All we ask in exchange for another $500 off is give us a case study. We love case studies because it helps continuously validate that this program works, that it is the only program out there that consistently works for people over and over again. So hopefully that sounds fair. So here's where we're at now. If you subtract $500, the final webinar price is $497. You get all the different bonuses that we talked about, but we're not done. Who likes coupons? So here's the thing. I like fast action takers. The world rewards action takers. So do I. For the next 30 minutes, you can save an additional $75, which, by the way, is the largest coupon I've ever done on Agency Black. I talked to Ray about it, and I wanted to do something special for you guys. So $75 off when you check out, at the page below. I got to warn you, it's literally an expiring coupon. So it will redirect to a page without the coupon in 30 minutes. Your browser will not let you back. All right, $75 off next 30 minutes. So use the coupon code MLO, save 75. MLO, save 75. That's Maps Liftoff, save 75. And it's there on the checkout page. So basically, with the fast acting coupon, you're getting everything for $422 today. That coupon goes away in 30 minutes. It's going to go back up. All right. So the other thing is we accept PayPal Bill Me Later. Again, this is how you can get started for no money. Unfortunately, it's for U.S. residents only. That's PayPal rules, not mine. But if you qualify, when you go to checkout, choose the PayPal option, and then go to PayPal Credit, and it will let you apply. And if you're approved, you can get started for no money today. I think you get 6 months to pay, which is kind of cool. All right. The other thing, you're backed by a full no questions asked money back guarantee for 30 full days. I forgot to put 30 days. It says it on the checkout page. So and it should say if you 100% satisfied. If you're not 100% satisfied with Agency Black, I don't play games with people. If you're not happy, we're not happy. We will cheerfully refund every penny, no questions. We're not going to beat you up in public and all that stuff. We're not like that. Okay. So let me just show you some other stuff, and we're going to hop back into part 2 of the training. These are clients who've gone through Agency Black. Right? These are people who've bought the exact same program I've just shown you and are doing very well. I showed you Matthew earlier, crushing it for 3 spots out of 3 in one. Seems impossible, right? He's doing it. 2 out of 3 for another. Just continues to do better and better and better at this stuff the more he learns. I showed you Floyd, $15,000 contract an hour after a webinar. Showed you Oliver already.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Hate to interrupt you there. A couple of people are asking for that code again. I'm going to put it in the chat box.
Yeah, it's MLO save, SAVE 75.
So Milo
MLO
75. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, and it's actually on the checkout, the cart page itself, and the checkout page, so you won't miss it there. So I showed you Oliver hadn't signed up for my program yet. Walks out with a hand-signed contract for $1,500 a month, $600 down. This is Andy. Just saying shout out to Brian. I did a bunch of consulting for his agency. Andy does a couple $1 million a year in business. A big agency who works only with lawyers. And essentially the same stuff that I teach in Agency Black, I worked with him over 3 or 4 sessions to deliver and really helped him crush super competitive keywords. Frank was doing very poorly in Maps. He was doing okay organically, but he'd gone through other Maps programs and basically was saying nothing helped. Purchased my Maps course 6 weeks later, #1 in Maps, and he's basically just saying thank you, that he'll trade $500 for a little work, and guess what? $5,000 a month in recurring revenue. So his ability to rank #1 in Maps for somebody resulted in $60,000 a year in extra revenue for him. So clients realize the benefit of this big time. It's not something that you have to sell as a low dollar service. It is becoming the premium service to sell. Jeff is just saying that, I'm one of the best in the game. It's one thing to know what works, execute it. Entirely different thing to teach it. Nathan, just showing results that he's gotten over the years from me having worked with Nathan. Again, the same stuff you'll learn in Agency Black. He just absolutely destroys Maps. He gets so many calls and actions that occur from Maps, it's not even funny. It's totally ridiculous, actually. This is Heather. she she jokingly divides her GMB reports that she provided clients into two categories: pre-Willie and post-Willie, which sounds terrible. My parents were very cruel giving me that name. So she was halfway through the course, and she's saying, this made me look good. Arrow is where the Willie bomb went off. So there's these things called insights that you'll be able to find inside of maps that will show you how you're doing. And you can see not ranking, and then boom, started ranking, which means phone calls, actions occurring on maps. People maybe click through to the site sometimes, but lots of phone calls. Adrian, just basically saying, get it now while he's feeling generous. Definitely worth every penny. Diggy, if you do any maps stuff, I'm kind of his go-to guy. Diggy, in and of himself, in his own right, is a 7-figure local marketer. Okay, he's doing a lot more cryptocurrency stuff now, but built up a huge local agency, done a lot of consulting for him. He's a very well-known guy, by the way, online. Very sharp, super nice guy. Monique, best course hands down. And I'm just going to go through these really quickly, guys, and we'll get back into the training. I told you don't rank maps just for maps ranking's sake. Here's Rick. He's talking about if I keep picking up clients like I have this week, I'll never finish the course. We got Martin, who is doing the same thing, by the way. He's getting clients, but he's also saying it's the best SEO training he's ever seen, and was on his way to the 3-pack after starting the course, and then now he was number 1. Then we got Gareth, signed up 30 location window franchise from just by having the confidence, guys, to know how to deliver on this stuff. Was able to do that. These are a couple other just quick testimonials, just someone saying that the core content is worth 5 times the price. Bonus modules are worth a ton of money. It's better than 9 other, I thought that was kind of funny, 9 other SEO courses that he's taken. The next one is classic example of someone who was doing very, very well organically, but just couldn't crack the code on maps. Takes the course. Now he's number 3 in maps for the main keyword, timeline 4 weeks. Physical therapy niche, tree service niche, totally different niche. In 2 weeks, he started jumping up into the 3-pack between position 1 and 3 for all the search terms that matter. Okay. Stephanie's just saying get in before we convince him to close it down. One of the most impressive courses. All right, so enough about that. I showed you Danny earlier who locked down 60,000 worth of maps contracts. So really quickly, we're going to hop into part 2 of the training, and we're going to take Q&A at the end. If you are on the fence, I would urge you to not be either, make a decision, because that $75 coupon is literally an expiring coupon. As soon as you hit that page, it goes away 30 minutes later, and it's not coming back, okay? So let's dive into part 2 of the training, and then we will get some Q&A going, and I'll give you information on where you can get the contract and proposal that I talked about. All right, so why are most local SEOs failing at maps, right? I showed you this guy here who was failing at maps, but doing just fine at local SEO. So why is that true? It's true because they're falling into what I refer to as, hey, I told you it was true, Google. I call it the because I told you it's true trap. It's your worst enemy in ranking in the 3-pack. What do I mean by that? Okay, in order to understand that, we need to understand the definition of a citation. So if I were to ask you what a citation is, most of you are likely to say, hey, Brian, it's my name, address, and phone number that exactly match my Google listing, my Google My Business listing, on authoritative sites like Yelp and Super Pages and on and on and on, Bing and Yahoo and whatever. Essentially, it is your name, address, and phone number. And you'd be 100% right. That is what a citation is all about in the context of maps. But in order to understand why local SEOs are not actually ranking in maps, we need to understand the definition of citation. So the question I want to ask you is, why did the nerds at Google decide to start referring to all these things as citations? Why is it that you can go out and buy, quote unquote, citation building services to go get your name, address, phone number, and your website on authoritative directory sites? Why the name citation? So citation, where it came from, is really just a reference to a book, paper, scholarly work. So here's how it works. Here's the way that I like to illustrate this. If I, on the one hand, and let's say that I'm a lawyer and I walk into a courtroom and I'm prosecuting a defendant for murder. Okay, guy's been accused of murder. I'm the prosecuting attorney, and I walk in and this is an absurd example, by the way, but stick with me here. I walk in and I point to the defendant, look at the judge, and said, "Hey, Your Honor, this guy's guilty because, well, I said he's guilty. Give me a ruling right now." I'm never going to do that, right? I'm going to have to put on evidence. I'm going to have to show proof. Okay? What about if I decide to get off my fat butt more often, which I should, as you saw during my demonstration about how I don't move from my seat and do testing on maps? What if I decide to write a diet book on the keto diet or something like that? And at the end of chapter 2, I say, therefore, the keto diet is the best diet because I said it's the best diet. That would be 100% absurd, right? What would I do? I would say, no, see Appendix A or something like that. For what? The citation, the proof, the meaning behind it. So let's hop back here. When I say because I told you it's true, that it's a trap, what I mean by that is it's not as absurd as the examples I just talked about, but it might as well be because it's keeping you out of maps. How so? If you have, let's say on the one hand, you have your Google listing, your GMB, Google My Business listing, and you tell Google one thing inside of that listing, but you fail to prove it, put on evidence, back it up everywhere else, it's not going to fly, okay? So that's why I say we have to start to understand the real meaning of citation, because if I just tell Google one thing over here, yet nowhere else across the web, on my website, off my website, links that I build, social properties that are out there, that tie into my website. If I'm saying one thing on the one hand, but I'm not lining it up and proving it, I'm shooting myself in the foot. Google is therefore not going to reward me as being a relevant player. The opposite is true, however. When I prove it to them, they reward me over and over. Okay, so you have to stop telling GMB, hey, Google, I told you it was true over here inside your GMB listing, and then having absolutely no backup on your site or off your site to prove it. Everything needs to start to line up. So everything that we actually do to rank for GMB needs to be treated as the definition of a citation, meaning that what you say inside of GMB lines up. You start to prove out what you're saying in GMB. You're telling a story inside of GMB that proves itself out across the web. It creates this backup, just like a citation would, right? It creates backup, proof, evidence. That's what we want all over the web. When these things line up, it's literally like the heavens align, okay? It becomes very, very important. It's an important part of your process, if not the most important part. It's the one thing that really just kills people's ability to rank. And when they fix it, I've seen it happen 100 times. It's like magic. They suddenly appear in maps because now they've proven it. All right. The other thing is Google My Business has these things called categories. A lot of you are probably familiar. Some aren't. You can sometimes select categories and show up in a couple minutes. I'll show you that in just a second. And then I'm going to get into the 3 top proof elements that you really need to have to be considered the most trustworthy. And it's really, you can see it as sort of a 3-part foolproof system to fast maps rankings. So let's dive into the 3 big things really quickly. And along the way, I'm going to weave in a couple concepts that we talked about on an earlier slide. But what are the big things that Google looks for to rank you in maps, to decide, hey, this person is more relevant than the other? What are they looking for when they said there's 4 personal injury lawyers in 1 office building? Let's only show 1. Let's filter the other 3. Why are the other 3 being filtered? Why is the 1 being rewarded? Here's the 3 things that you need to know. You need to understand and prove to Google that you are who you say you are, which is your brand name. Okay? And it seems very simplistic, but people fail at this miserably over and over again. SEOs do, in proving that you are who you say you are. Use of your brand. We'll talk a little more. We're going to talk about each of these concepts in a minute. Number 2, niche, you do what you say you do. You have to prove that you actually do what you told Google you did in your listing. So if you choose a category, but you fail to prove that category, and there's lots of ways to prove it, by the way, on your site, off your site, all these different things, it's game over. So any one of these things, it's sort of game over. Okay, you have to have all of these. Brand, proof. Niche, proof. 3, you're located where you say you are, geo. And I should have put this at number 1. It literally is the most important thing. We've seen this. I've shown you this. I've proven this to you in the last hour. You're located where you say you're located, geo. This is by far the most important part of the equation. Those 3 big changes we talked about under Possum are all influenced by geo. So it's absolutely essential. So here's the thing that we've tend to forget. We're in local, guys. GMB is and always has been driven by local. Okay. It used to be called Places, Google Places, all about a place, local. It was called Google Plus Local. Now it's called Google My Business, which they've gotten away from the local part, but guess what? It is still driven by local. 3 of the 5 big Possum changes were geographically based. Can't ignore this or you can't rank. All right, so let's dive a little deeper here into each of these concepts. Brand. So your brand is your brand. If you work with a law firm, it might be XYZ and Associates. That's their brand. That's what's going to be in their GMB listing. We've talked about proof. One way you can start to prove this is lining these things up. You can do things like putting your exact brand in your title tag. So if you're not familiar with title tags, don't worry about it. I go through all that in the training. But for those of you who've done any kind of SEO, you're familiar with title tags, where it's one of the most important places that you can have not only the keywords you want to rank for, but guess what? It's a big signal to put your brand in there to help trigger you to get into maps. Is it the only thing that will get you into maps? No. There's about 30 different things that you have to do to line up to get into maps, but is one of the things that when I look at a website, it's one of the first things I look at. Like, you're missing your title tag. You know, in your title tag, you don't have your brand. We have to have that because it helps, for lack of a better word, it's kind of like talking back and forth, signaling back and forth to your GMB listing that, hey, I said this also on my website in a very prominent spot. It's a way of lining things up. Branded networks. So I talked about one of the bonuses that I give away in Agency Black is how I set up these super high authoritative networks. And I do it from a niche perspective, a brand perspective, a geo perspective. Branded is one of the most important things you can do. So real brands don't just limit themselves to talking about their brand in a maps listing or just on their website. Real brands actually have other social profiles set up. You know, things like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all these different things. They also get brand mentions. So what's a brand mention? You know, if you go out and you're reading a review or something like that for an Amazon product, the person that's doing the review is not going to always create a hyperlink or a link every time to that Amazon product. You know, sometimes it's just bloggers saying, hey, I picked this up on Amazon.com, but it's not linked. That's a brand mention. I picked this up on whatever. And so real brands have what are called brand mentions. Essentially it's not a link, it's just a mention of the brand name. The other thing is that these sites link to other sites. How many of you have seen this over and over? The best way to illustrate it is, you know, you go to somebody's website and they have a link to their Google Plus page, which is kind of going away, by the way, but they have, you know, a link to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, you know, their LinkedIn profile. And then you get over to their YouTube channel and it has a link over to, you know, their Twitter profile and their Facebook profile. That's interlinking these brand authoritative sites. Most people ignore this. It becomes a huge part of a strategy to help get you ranked. Is this one thing going to get you ranked? No. It's one of 20 or 30 things that you need, but it's from if we had to carve these things out into 3 big things, it's brand, niche, and geo, and proof. Okay. So let's talk about niche. So niche is obviously what niche you're in, but it goes much deeper than that, guys. It actually, in the GMB world of ranking maps, it has to do with category selection and then use of category selection on your site. And then how we can structure our site to use proper category selection to trigger and rank any keyword we want to that's tied into that category. Okay, it sounds confusing. It's really not. But category selection is very much overlooked and extremely, extremely important. It's a very strong ranking signal, so much so. Go ahead. Do I hear you, Ray?
Yeah, that was me. Sorry. I've got a couple people saying that they can't get the code to work.
Oh, okay. Did it expire or should work?
I wonder if it is, because we may have been chatting for 30 minutes since we hit it.
Did you type in, what did you type in the chat? MLO or?
Yeah, MLO save 75. I just tested it and it didn't work for me either.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we extend it or something. Once I get out the webinar, I'll extend it for another 30 minutes beyond the webinar. It should work unless it expired and redirected already. If somebody hit the page and didn't buy, in 30 minutes it would redirect. Is it saying save 75 on the page?
Yeah, I put actually it doesn't. It says save 50 on the page.
Okay, that means that 30 minutes passed and it redirected. Somebody hit that page and it's already redirected. So you can save 50, or I'll extend it and put up for another 30 minutes after the webinar ends. I'll make sure you can get back on that page. Okay, does that sound fair?
Yep.
So don't worry about that. All right, guys, just grabbing a little water here. So niche, category selection is extremely important. So much so that if you choose the right category, it's such a strong ranking signal. And I've tested this. It's slowed down a little bit. You used to be able to rank in 3 minutes. Now sometimes it's 3 hours, 3 days. But the point is that you can sometimes rank not in the 3-pack, but in more places when you choose a category. So it's proof that just choosing a category is the beginning point to your way to the 3-pack. Becomes a very important concept. So the reason that I discovered this is I used to work with a lot of dental SEO agencies, SEOs who would provide niche-based services to dentists. And we would go through these examples of, we need to get your categories straight. And I would say, what categories do you have inside of GMB? And they would say, almost every time, dentist and dental clinic. And then I would ask questions. Does your dentist do cosmetic dentistry? Yes. Go select it in GMB. Do they do teeth whitening? Well, of course they do. Go select it in GMB. And we would be on the phone together, and it's not as fast anymore. Just so if you test this, it's not going to happen as quickly as it used to. Sometimes in 30 seconds, I would see a maps listing appear where it didn't before. Again, not in the 3-pack, in more places. There's still a lot more work that you have to do to get into the 3-pack. But the point is, you would never have a chance if you didn't even start with a category selection. So niche in the world of GMB is category. All right, geo. So this is by far the single most important ranking signal in local. It is proof that you're located where you say you are. And of course, things like citations, not my absurd example of the definition of citation, but actual citations that you can go by that match your name, address, and phone number. Yeah, they matter. And they used to matter a lot for many years. Unfortunately, now they have less authority. You can't just throw up a maps listing, throw citations at it, and expect it to rank. It's one of 20 or 30 things that you need to do to get into maps. Okay, it's one proof element. But you do need to be able to use geo in different ways. You need to prove that you're located where you say you are. Right, so one of the bonuses, I talk about that in my supporting page superstructure on page, what you do on your actual website. One of the things I teach is how I use those different supporting pages, including geographic supporting pages, to prove to Google that I am the most geographically relevant. What does this do? This helps solve a lot of the problems that we were seeing, where we might only show up otherwise for a couple keywords in a part of town where the search originates from. All right, but when I start to prove that I'm relevant in all parts of town, that's where the magic happens. That's where I have a client who, it's pretty funny. He is constantly testing his GMB on his mobile phone, and he jokingly complains. He's super happy. He jokingly complains that he only shows up for between 12 and 14 major parts of town out of 18 for all of his major keywords, where he used to show up for 18 out of 18, right? So it becomes, and where most people are showing up for one. So that's why I say jokingly, he just gives me crap for it for fun. But he knows that I'm delivering stellar results. So it's proof that you're located where you say you are, right? If you do order citations, I'm not saying don't do it, you need to do it. People are wasting their money on regular citations. Use geo-specific citations at least, but more importantly, avoid the because I told you it's true trap by matching geo everywhere. All right, that becomes extremely important. Match geo everywhere. So here's another little bonus tip that I want you to understand. And this comes as a big shock to my consulting clients, to almost everybody I ever talk to about maps. Only about 5% of what you do inside your actual GMB listing itself has anything at all to do with how you rank in maps, period, okay? With one exception. If you were to engage in like keyword stuffing of your brand, which I highly, strongly recommend you don't, Google flags that stuff. Google suspends those listings. You might get away with it for a while, but if you're working with clients, you most certainly don't want to do that. It's the fastest way to get fired. As soon as their listing is suspended, you've lost all trust. So if only 5% has to do with your GMB listing, what does that mean? Really about 80% has to do with how you actually optimize your on-page itself. Meaning, what do you do on your website itself in structure? So I'm not, if anybody familiar with SEO, I'm not referring to just typical on-page elements like add images and make sure your site speed is good and things like that. I'm talking about how you actually use structure to force Google to understand you are the most relevant player. So Agency Black teaches you that, right? So 80% has to do with what you're actually doing on your website. And that's sort of a big aha moment for a lot of people. You need to be able to get into a website, make some changes according to what I teach in the training, and that's what really drives your ability to rank. The other 15% is offsite stuff, okay? Other offsite things you can do, networks, links, press releases, different things that you can do that can help you along the way. The point is that if you get that 80% wrong, or you don't do it at all, which is what most people don't do, that's why they're left shaking their head going, why can't I rank in maps? It's because they don't have an understanding that what really controls is what you do on your site. That's the biggest proof point that I've talked about, that lining things up and proving to Google, this is where it occurs, but it has to occur in structure so that Google understands when they send out their crawlers to your site, it starts to line up. It makes sense. They want to reward you, okay? And of this 80%, 50% of that is geo-ranking signals on your site. So they are that important. And literally almost nobody does this. And without them, in today's world, it's very, very tough to rank. So let's recap what we've learned. The blended algorithm is hit or miss, but really has provided a big opportunity to now rank quickly in maps. No longer do you have to be ranked on page 1 to make your way in maps. I showed you Dimitri, who got there in 30 days. That's not an uncommon result. 60 to 90 days is more common, but it's a big shift when it might take you 6 months or 9 months and your site's on page 7 and it's not budging and your client's getting mad at you. Yet now they're no longer mad at you because you're ranking in maps, you're helping them with reviews. That's what they wanted all along anyway. They wanted phone calls. So this big opportunity shift, I can't overemphasize that enough, opened up for us since Possum. It's huge. Number 2, the world has gone entirely mobile. Most searches occur on mobile. Google has finally recognized this. I don't know what took them so long. More importantly, they recognize that we are in a review-based society. That took them a really long time to figure out and put a strong emphasis on that. Yelp just overtook everything. And I think Google finally said, oh my God, we have to do something about this, and started really building it into the Maps program more and more and more. So if mobile is so important, what did they do about it? Well, they created an entire algorithm around it called Possum that I showed you. Everything you do has to involve a huge element of geographic relevancy now, because mobile devices in relation to where somebody's searching is what is often triggering the result. So in order to control that and start to show up for more and more results, we have to get in that mindset of mobile is everything and geo-relevancy is everything. And number 3, there's 3 parts to winning the Maps game, and you have to get all of them right: brand, niche, and geo. Ignore any of these at your peril. You can get one right and maybe you do okay. But in general, that's sort of the trifecta. You've got to get all of those right and use them as proof points to line it up with your listing. Number 4, get out of the mindset of playing that, hey, Google, I told you it was true game, right, that we talked about. And remember really what I told you a citation is, the definition. It's a proof element. It doesn't just work with actual citations. A citation that you get on Yelp or whatever is a proof element. It's a citation, but it's called a citation for a reason. That's what I'm trying to drive home. You have to understand the meaning behind it. It really is just a proof element, and it doesn't just work with citations. It really, you have to do it with everything. You have to do it with every element of what you do, so that you're lining things up between your Maps listing and what Google sees across the web, really to create things that are predictable when it seems unpredictable. It gives Google a lot to go on. Number 5, what you see as far as rankings in your city, rank tracking tools, all that stuff, they really don't matter. I'm not saying don't use them as a starting point or something to send your clients, but in general, they're wrong. Why? I showed you all the variations between desktop, mobile, Wi-Fi, me not moving. All these different things resulted in different Maps listings. So how do you beat this? The way that you beat this is relevancy across the board, especially geographic relevancy. So you need brand and niche relevancy for sure. But the more geographically specific you get in the eyes of Google, that's how you beat that. Those variations that we see all across the city. That's when your client's phone rings off the hook. It becomes a very important part of your understanding and capability of ranking Maps. Number 6, only about 5% of your ability to rank has anything at all to do with, quote, optimizing your GMB listing. I would argue there's really no such thing as optimizing your GMB listing outside of categories. And the obvious things like, yeah, get your name, address, and phone number correct. Other than that, the real magic happens, 80% of it anyway, on your site in structure. Okay? All right, so again, we had a limited time together. I hope you got a lot out of the training. I mentioned earlier I have a program called Agency Black. We've had 1,100 people go through this training who have done very, very well. Okay, huge community we built up. Public price is $997. You're not paying that. Got a discount on the webinar, $500. And again, really the reason for this is I love case studies. It just further validates the program. So I want you to go through it, become an industry leader, and get good results, and reach back out to us and say, look, this really worked. Okay, so in exchange for that, we're knocking off $500. So it's $497. Ray mentioned that some of you are having problems with the coupon, or maybe it expired because you probably clicked on the page and a countdown timer hits. I wasn't joking when I said in 30 minutes it will redirect. So there is a $50 coupon on the other one that's going to expire. I think, Ray, I think it's going to run maybe through tomorrow night. We haven't decided on that yet. But the $75 coupon was good for 30 minutes. If it ran out, too bad. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually going to extend it for everybody who's staying to the end. Once I get off this, I'll go reset it and make sure you get another 30 minutes so you get that $75 off. Okay? But it'll do the same thing. It will redirect. That's the coupon code. If the timer has not run out, MLO save 75. Okay. And that's on the page itself too. And unless it's redirected, it's not. So I'll reset that for you. So it's 422 today. You're saving another $75. You're getting literally the best deal I think I've ever done on Agency Black. I've never done a $75 coupon. So definitely take advantage of it. Bill Me Later, we already talked about. If you want to get in for no money down, go for it. Apply U.S. residents only. It's PayPal's rules, not mine. But if you qualify, you can get in, and I think you don't have to pay anything for 6 months. It's pretty cool. And you're covered by a 30-day full no questions asked money back guaranteed. If you're not 100% satisfied, we just don't play games. Like, just say, hey, this wasn't for me. You'll get a refund. No problem at all. So why don't we dive into some questions, Ray? I can't see the question box right now, so maybe you can read some questions to me if you've got some that have come through.
Yep, I definitely do. We got quite a few questions here. And let's see, Q&A only. Boy, I love that in this program I can actually pull up just the questions, so it eliminates all the comments except the questions, which is
nice.
All right, so Brian, can you go over how to avoid clients from leaving us once we get them ranked, as many clients are short-sighted about what they're getting? And I think we had a few questions that kind of fit that same mold.
Sure. You're always going to get some that will do that. There's two ways to really combat that. Number one is let them know that it can be short-lived. So in other words, just because you do work that gets them into Maps does not mean that they are going to stay around in Maps with all the constant updates that occur. So they need your expertise to continually do work on this every single month to get them to stay in Maps. And more importantly, expand their presence in Maps as time goes on through more keyword variations and showing up in more parts of town. So if you can talk to them about what we referred to earlier, which is that big disconnect about how they might be showing up in only a few parts of town, and you're going to be working with them to get them showing up in many more parts of town for more keywords, but that takes time. That combats that part of that right there. Number two, one of the best ways to combat this is essentially get a client, use their address, use your tracking number. Now you have to kind of walk a fine line to be able to do this. I'm going to tell you really quickly how I do this. The big fear of clients is you're going to hijack their number, their phone number, if you have a tracking number on there. A tracking number will allow you to prove to them all the phone calls that are coming in, which will keep them happier than just, let's say, GMB Insight reports that you can pull down that show, yes, people called you as a result of clicking on Maps. This goes a step further where you can actually produce a call report and say on such and such date at this time, there was a 19-minute phone call. On this date, there was a 14-minute phone call. And you can go so far as to record the phone calls depending on your comfort level, your client's comfort level. So you provide reports that make you stickier, for lack of a better word, right? They want you to stick around because you're proving to them that you're giving results. What's the big objection there, guys? The big objection is, well, wait a second, if I'm not using my phone number, the client may say, you're going to hijack that number. Build it right into the contract that you don't do that you will port that number over to them after, if they decide to leave. My point is that gives them comfort, and they're also not going to want to leave because you're giving them a different level of insight, really good level of reporting that proves that those calls are coming through your number. They don't want to, they're not going to want to leave at that point. So hopefully that's helpful. There's a couple ways to combat that situation.
Okay, Julie wants to know, how do we deal with fixing their website, especially if it's not WordPress? And this is actually a question that I had because, for instance, I'm dealing with a realtor right now, and she doesn't have her own website. She's got a page on the real estate company's website and doesn't have a lot of control over that.
Yep. So that's kind of two different things. Let me address part one first. If they do have control of their website, yet it's not on WordPress, one thing that I always do as a part of setup is go out and get that site converted. It's very, very easy to do. So even if, I don't care if they have the most the most beautiful website you've ever seen, and it's done in HTML5 or something like that. You can't really work with that very easily. What I do is go out and hire somebody on Upwork or some other site, but typically Upwork, and you'd be shocked, for maybe $300 to $500, somebody can go out and make an exact duplicate. All that code is there. All they do is take the open source code from the HTML5 site or whatever, and they create a blank WordPress theme, and basically what spits out on the other end is an exact duplicate, a replica of the look and feel of that site, which is now controllable in WordPress. So I do that all the time as a mandatory requirement to work with me. Why? Because I want control over that site. It's harder to rank when you don't have control. So to your point, Ray, is it impossible with your realtor? No. Is it tougher? Yes, because you want to be able to make changes to the site. So that happens with, if you work with franchises or you work with realtors or people that have a page on a site they have no control over. Ideally, somebody they have a webmaster who is willing to make the changes on your behalf. That's an ideal scenario. If they won't even do that for them, then you just need to set a different expectation that it's going to take longer, because your ability to rank at that point is going to be all of the off-page signaling that we talked about through networks, setting up social sites. There's a lot of things we can do at that point to help trigger a maps result. It's just not as easy, and it'll take a little more time. That make sense?
That does. That makes a lot of sense. And a follow-up to that, you mentioned that the offsite, or excuse me, the on website, I know it's going to get confusing when we're saying on-site, off-site, the off Google sites, when you make changes to the actual Google Maps listing, such as adding images, adding videos, does that make any difference to the ranking at all?
Not really. I mean, it can help a little bit. So I was saying that the GMB listing itself is really about 5% of your ability to get ranked. And that 5% is categories. I would say probably 4% of the 5% is categories. And the rest would be proper use of images. So some of you might be familiar with, people loosely use the phrase, hey, geotag your image. Okay, so which is a form of what I refer to as image optimization. There's really about 4 parts to optimizing an image, one of which is basically using geotagged coordinates, latitude and longitude of where the place is located, or if it's not located there and it's a service business, places that they service, homes that they've been to service. It's embedding that latitude and longitude inside of a photo because that's readable by Google. But that's only one of about 4 things you need to do for image optimization. The other part that Google doesn't tell you about, and that the most, quote, maps experts won't tell you, is that when you upload that data to Google, those images, they're really at that point more of a conversion element. And why do I say that? If you were to upload those completed tagged images that are fully optimized, and then you right click, save as, whatever, if you're on a Mac, whatever you use, you resave that exact photo you just uploaded back to your computer, most of that data is stripped out. So Google is compressing that data, probably to preserve storage space, right? So in other words, what we don't know is, are they using that in the background somehow to still give some proof? None of that matters. What matters is it becomes a conversion element. Someone sees the pictures on your maps listing and you do all that properly. It can help when somebody lands on the listing, right? If you're a restaurant and you don't have any images of all your best whatever, if you like pizzas or whatever it is, you're going to get less conversions, right? Unless you have a bunch of photos of inside of the restaurant and your most popular, best-selling dishes, all that stuff, your conversion is going to tank. But does it help you rank? Not necessarily. What helps you rank is use of those images on other places, on your website, across the web. There's different things we can do. that will maintain that image optimization. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but yeah, that's kind of how that works.
No, that's good to know. Let's see. If you use a different contact number, I assume this is like the tracking number here. Will this upset your citations on all the other sites where the business is currently listed with the real number?
It can, and what you would need to do, and again, build this into your setup fee is, and you'll see this, by the way, in the contract that I'm giving away, a citation cleanup. So you're going to have a couple situations. You're going to have people who have a very small citation footprint, meaning that they're either a new business or they've been around, but they didn't do much on Google Maps to have created a lot of citations. And my rule of thumb is if you have less than about 30 citations that are out there, let's say that have the business owner's phone number, you can overcome the presumption that that is in fact the correct information by bombarding the web with, let's say, 90 citations that have your phone number on it. Make sense?
Yep, no, it definitely does.
So you definitely can do that. If they start to get much more than 30 to 50 citations that have it, you might need to do a citation cleanup. And there are services that will do that for you. Takes a couple months, and it's not the end of the world. You continue to build new citations with your tracking number and slowly but surely clean that up and build that pricing into your setup fee.
Great. We've got a couple of questions, and I know I saw this one a couple times. Austin asked this, and I think somebody else did as well. When we're talking about going back to the branding part, you mentioned doing the branding in the title of the page. Can you kind of explain what you mean by branding versus what might be there normally?
Yeah, when I refer to branding, I'm not referring to the marketing term branding, where like McDonald's brands itself by having what do you know McDonald's for? I'm loving it, stuff like that. That's branding, where it's associating a large company with something that every time they hear or see something makes them think of that restaurant, that brand, whatever it is. When I talk about brand or branding, what I'm referring to is the person's business name. And you're going to have that one time inside of your GMB listing. Inside of your title tag, that's one other place that is a strong ranking signal to have somebody's brand name. So you might have, let's say it's like criminal lawyer New York City is in your title tag. That's the main keyword you want to rank for. The part that people miss that can help you get ranked in maps. And again, I don't want to paint the picture that one thing is going to get you ranked in maps. It's not. It's a combination of things. The part that people miss is they might get criminal lawyer New York City, but they totally forget about putting that person's brand name. So if their actual brand name is XYZ law firm, you could put that after criminal lawyer New York City, and it creates a signal that you have some brand relevance at that point. Now, there's much more to it beyond that, but that's what I mean when I talk about title tags, and we get all into that in the course and how to do that.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, this is a good one. If we're selling to have a residual income, how do we cut somebody off if they stop paying?
If they stop paying, well, I mean, there's a couple ways. Number one, own the properties. So you could do if you're really concerned with that, do lead generation, where you own the website, you create the listing, and if they stop paying, you just simply redirect everything, or yank that maps listing down and create a different one for somebody else. So that's one way to do it. The other way is it ties into what we talked about earlier. If they stop paying, then there's at some point they're going to drop out of maps and realize the error of their ways. Does that help you from a residual standpoint? No. In my experience, does it happen a lot? No. I've had clients that are with me for 7 and 8 years who never make a move. And when I say never make a move, I literally mean not only am I kind of impervious to other SEOs trying to poach me and go after me, it gets to the point where they see you as a marketing partner, where let's say a directory calls them up and says, hey, do you want a listing in this directory for $97 a year? I have clients who will call me and say, do you think that's a good idea? And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds good to me. But my point is that they don't leave you because they view you as such a valuable partner that you're the person that's delivering so many phone calls. Why would they leave you? So it does happen from time to time, but it doesn't happen as much as you would think.
Okay, excellent. And a couple of questions about the course itself. Do you update it regularly? And how long do people get the updates that you make?
We do update it fairly regularly. The way that it's mostly updated is in large batches where we might do a video where there's, like, let's say that there's something major that's been that changes. We'll do update video. It also gets discussed quite a bit inside the Agency Black group. So that's a lot of times the updates occur where the conversations are happening inside of Agency Black, the Facebook group itself. That way, and I find that's the best way anyway, because if you're having to log in and figure out, okay, well, this video changed from this video, that's kind of a hassle, versus naturally our community inside of Agency Black Facebook, they are very conversational. And if something changes, you'll be the first to know. Just drop into that group and you'll find out what's going on, what to do.
Let's see, going back down here. We already answered that one. Finding something new here. Oh, here is something Alan asked. Is this different than the lab training? And I wasn't sure what that meant. So.
Oh yeah, I'm a member of what's called the lab, which is there's 4 of us: Matt Diggity, Dino Gomez, Mark Luckenbaugh, myself, and we created something called the lab, which is really kind of super high level SEO training. This is different in the sense that in the lab, that's much more of, I would say, a walkthrough of what you guys are getting in Agency Black, where this is pure over the shoulder how to do it training, if that makes sense. Okay. So it is different. You get much more in Agency Black than you do in the lab in terms of maps content itself.
Beautiful. Okay, and there was a couple of different questions in here regarding, as far as the service goes, what do you actually offer to the client and how much do you charge for it?
What you offer to the client has to do with how you position things. So the way that I position myself is even maps is really a feature. So if you look at copywriting and things like that, they'll talk about things like features and benefits. And ultimately, the thing that sells to people is the benefit of something, not the feature. So maps is a feature. Getting ranked in maps is a feature. What's the benefit of that? Phone calls. What's the benefit of that? I've got more potential clients. What's the benefit of that? Maybe my revenues grow. I can expand my business. I can hire somebody and take more time off. So it's all about positioning. So what you're selling is not necessarily maps ranking. The way that I like to sell this is I'm the person that can provide phone calls and leads in this particular niche. So you want to get known in a particular niche. You want to be known as a person that doesn't just do quote SEO or web design that everybody does. And you also don't necessarily want to say, oh, I do maps, because a lot of people say I do maps. You want to couch it in terms of the end benefit, which is I deliver phone calls and leads so that you can grow your revenues, hire somebody, maybe take more time away from your business. So that's what you're really selling. As far as price points are concerned, it really all depends on the type of client you work with. What's their initial value for, if a client sees them, a new customer, what's the initial customer value to them? What's the lifetime customer or client value to them, which can be measured over maybe just the course of a year. So you work with a restaurant, for instance. If you know that somebody, it's a higher end restaurant and their initial ticket that night, very first time they come in, is $140, and the average person comes in 3 more times during the year, well, now you've got some numbers to work with, right? Now maybe each person's worth $500 a year, if I can provide X number of phone calls that lead to more, whatever, maybe you get 15 brand new people who wouldn't have found you otherwise. What's that worth over the course of a month and a year? You can start to price it. So there's no one price point that I can say, hey, charge $1,000. I would say if you're charging less than $1,000 for maps, you're not pricing yourself. You're underpricing yourself.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good to hear, because I know I've seen a lot of people that offer quote unquote map services for, $200-$300.
Yeah, and those are the people that just outsource everything and they have a sit and pray mentality. They just sit and pray that they're going to get ranked in maps someday. So when you really do it right, the way that we talk about it in the course, it's,
Austin says, is that 1,000 monthly or 1,000?
Oh, monthly. Yeah. Minimum 1,000 monthly. Nice. And it could become much more than that, because as I showed you in those, in the study that just came out, it's literally now the premier service. SEO is going to matter less and less. Pure organic SEO rankings. Why? Because people aren't even visiting websites as much. So Maps is literally positioned to become the premier service that is going to be your top tier, highest price service, and everything else is going to be the add-ons. Like SEO is going to become an add-on at that point, assuming you do local work. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. A quick follow-up. Edward asks, what if it's in a smaller area with less search volume?
You mean for pricing or for?
Yeah, for pricing, I think.
It really just depends on your comfort level, right? The thing that I tell people is, if you're just getting started, don't be afraid to charge less, to go out and get a bunch of case studies that you can then use to charge more later. So don't think that I'm telling you, oh, don't do it unless you get $1,000. If you're just starting, maybe you do charge $500 a month, and go prove yourself in a small area, and then go prove yourself a couple more times. Use those as little case studies, and now up your fee to $1,500 a month, because now you have the confidence that you can deliver.
Nice. All right. And Austin asked, and I think somebody else asked a similar thing. How do you, when it comes to the maps, how does that compete with something like Zillow, if they're a real estate agent, or other listing sites that may have a lot of power?
From a maps perspective, those listings don't tend to end up in maps as often. They tend to conquer organic for sure. So if you work with real estate agents on an organic only basis, I wish you the best of luck. It's very, very tough to outdo Realtor and Zillow and all those different sites that just own every single page. But from a maps perspective, if you're typing in real estate agent, real estate broker, whatever, those are going to be individualized. It's typically not going to be the Zillows of the world. So that's a nice opportunity to, and again, if you combine maps with reviews, which is really the double threat right there, that's what you want to sell. I can get you phone calls and leads. And by the way, that's not enough, because once we get you that visibility in maps, the thing that is really going to sell you and make your phone ring is the number and quality of reviews. If you have that, it's literally a double threat at that point. And you can now work with people like realtors, where before I would never touch realtors, because I couldn't, it's just hard to conquer Zillow and all those people.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is typically the maps are going to show up higher than that Zillow listing.
Yeah, they are.
Let's see. Julie says this sounds too complicated for her. Having high-end business change their website and phone number throughout the web may be difficult for a lot of well-established businesses. What do you think of that?
You don't always have to change the phone number. I think the question was in response to people fearing that the client would leave once you get them there. My point was that's really kind of more of a rarity. That's the exception, not the rule.
Well, I think she's more worried about not being able to change their website, because they're going to be like, you're not touching my website.
Oh, and that does happen sometimes, but I would say in general, the conversation goes like this. You want to get phone calls, right? And as long as it's a WordPress site, it's pretty easy to get their sign off to do. Occasionally you'll get some real high-end person who spent 20 grand on a website and they don't want you to mess with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, again, that's the exception, not the rule. I would say at that point, those people will oftentimes have webmasters. A lot of times the people that created the site itself, you would formulate a plan to work with that person to integrate the changes. So, from a visual perspective, things still look nice. And those things are really, I've only had that happen once or twice where someone's like, no, I don't want you to mess with the website. And I just end up working with a webmaster to integrate what I need. And there's no visual change to the site, the way it looks at that point.
Nice. And a couple people having questions about the tracking numbers and how they're used for tracking.
Sure. Yeah. Again, don't get caught up on tracking numbers too much, because it's something you don't need to worry about that much. The only reason to use a tracking number is if you're truly concerned a client is flighty and might bail on you if you get them results. There are other legitimate reasons to use it, which is you can prove yourself a little bit easier, right, through reports. So all a tracking number is, there's services like CallFire, analytic call tracking. All they are services where you can purchase a phone number in any city for between $1 and maybe $10 a month. And when you get in there, you just tell it where you want it to route to. So it's one number, and then you put the client's number as where it's going to ring to. And then essentially the front-facing phone number becomes the tracking number that people would see on the maps listing across the web. They would dial that. It would ring directly through to the client's phone number without any kind of delay or anything like that. But more importantly, the reason it's called a tracking number is it tracks. It'll tell you the phone rang from this phone number on this date and time, and it'll allow you to spit out reports every month that say, look, you got 30 phone calls that came through the tracking number we assigned to you. So it's a way of proving yourself, but it's not always necessary. I would say most of the time you just go with the client's number. They start to realize their phone's ringing a lot more, and they're super happy.
Nice. All right, let's see. Going back to reviews for a second, what is the power of reviews on the actual Google listing?
Power in terms of ranking, it is one of probably 30 different factors that you need. I would say, if you asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd say not at all. It's becoming more powerful, but again, it's not, just like everything we've talked about, any one thing is not enough it's not a magic bullet where you go, hey, I got reviews down, now I'm going to do well. It is a ranking factor out of probably 30 ranking factors. So you don't want to ignore it. The other reason you don't want to ignore it is pure and simple what we talked about before. Conversions on maps will suffer if you don't have a good review process.
Right.
Because the visibility gets you step one. You need the visibility to be found, but just because you're found doesn't mean somebody is going to, on a mobile phone, click to call if you don't have enough reviews and the other people below you have a ton of them. So that's what I mean. It's almost like that double threat of you can sell this as a package deal of review, reputation management, and map stuff for getting the phone to ring lead generation, because the two simply can't be separated at this point. You just can't.
Yep. And we saw that earlier in one of the slides where the person in the #1 spot had one-star review.
Oh yeah. And that's starting to shift, even where Google's showing less of that, where I think Google finally understands from a user experience standpoint, that's not a good user experience to show people with 1 star in the 3-pack.
Right.
If they're not getting clicked on enough, you're going to get replaced. So got to really combine those services and make your client understand that it's a combo deal. And here's why. Show them the proof that I showed you on the slide.
And that goes back to one of the things we talked about with, what are you actually selling to people? And you think about it, if somebody's got one-star review and you get them to page one, are you really helping them at that point? Because all you're doing is making that one-star review visible. So you got to do something to help them with that one-star review as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's why it's perfectly situated to combine both those services together, or use one or the other as a foot in the door, but you can't have one without the other at that point. And so they need to purchase both.
Oh, here's a really good question that our good buddy Flash just put up here. I've set up a 1-800 number for a real estate niche where it says 1 for real estate sales, 2 for listings, 3 for rentals. And there are 4 agents with that exact same 1-800 number. So when I use that number in maps for different companies, will that cause a problem with the same number being used for each map setup? That's a great question.
Yeah, it will. You need a unique number, which is why at that point I would let them know that it will create an issue and create a tracking number that forwards to that number. Because it becomes almost duplicate content or a duplicate listing at that point, and it just is not it's not gonna benefit you when you do it that way.
And what I would suggest with the real estate agents, because I work with a few of those, they love their cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
Use them.
Yeah.
And I know, Flash, you're down under. I don't know if it's the same there, but here in the U.S., each of those agents would much rather you call their cell phone number than that 800 number.
Yeah, agreed. What other questions can I answer? I know I don't want to keep people too long here, and I also want to go reset that link for everybody if you're
I know. Well, first of all, I got to say, I'm impressed at everybody who's hung around here and asked all these questions, because we're now over 2 hours in this, and everyone is still hanging around, so that's good. That's
awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely reset that link for you guys so that it will get you back to that $75 coupon for those of you who it expired for.
Let's see. A few people have asked, is there going to be a replay? Yes, there will definitely be a replay.
Yes.
In fact, it'll be live probably minutes after this ends.
Cool.
We got the question again. How long do we get updates as Google makes changes? Yeah, you're going to keep getting updates. You've got access to a membership site, so every time there's an update, you're going to get it.
Yep. And like I said, most of the updates occur inside of the Agency Black group itself, because sometimes the updates come fast and furious, and there's just discussions that go on about, this changed, here's what we're doing about it, here's what's working, here's what's not, rather than continuously replacing videos, right? It just doesn't, at that point, it gets to be strange. So you can like digging through videos going, hey, I wonder which one is an update, what's changed. So sometimes we'll do a little of that, but most of it's inside the Agency Black Facebook group.
Very good. Okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna make the call to put your last second questions in there now, because we're gonna end this pretty quick. So if you've got questions, throw them in there immediately so we can make sure we get to them. Edward wants to know about rank and rent, and if you cover that at all.
I do cover it, not in terms of the sales aspect of it, but I do cover how to get believable addresses, things like that. It's not a course on how to get no address verification, no postcard verification techniques.
Oh yeah, and here's another one that's actually popped up a couple times, and this is an easy one. Are there any upsells?
There is an upsell into the Accelerate group. It's up to you if you want to take it or not. There's a $1 trial into my mastermind. The mastermind is pretty cool in the sense that the people that are in that are very committed with an understanding that what we talked about, maps, is not only where it's at, but where everything is headed. SEO is much more of a dead message. And so it really teaches you and equips you with everything you need to know from a marketing standpoint to attract clients to you. And that's what we want. We don't want to chase after clients. We want them reaching out to us already in a position to want to do business with us, so that by the time we get them on the phone and we talk to them about our message of we're the people in your niche that deliver phone calls and leads, it's a done deal at that point. So that's a lot about what Accelerate's about. You can see it after you purchase. There's a real short video that explains it. Obviously, entirely up to you if you want to partake in that or not.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's see. Tom said he had to leave, but he's back now.
Hey, welcome back, Tom.
Do you have anything that helps us sell this to prospective clients, such as sales pages, videos, or anything like that?
You do get a bonus sales page that I put together, but the training, Agency Black is about ranking. Okay? It's not about positioning. It's not about client acquisition, none of that. Accelerate is all about client acquisition, positioning, marketing. Agency Black at its core is how to rank Maps listings every time through a very distinct set of processes that have worked for years. And it's really the only program like it out there. Most people are very focused on external things that they think work for making Maps, making you get into Maps. When I say external, I mean off-page things that you can do. And quite frankly, that's very hit or miss. It just doesn't work most of the time. Agency Black is a very different course. As Ray can tell you, it's very, very much about what you do on site and how you prove things to Google. But it's a ranking course. It's not really a client acquisition course. One of the bonuses will give you a sales page that I've used in the past that will help you there.
Okay, and speaking of some of the offsite stuff, Ron wants to know, what about press releases? Will they help you to rank more quickly in the 3-pack? And I guess we can go not only with that, but maybe doing various types of backlinking. Does that matter?
No, not really. Press releases can help from time to time in the sense that, I don't know if you were around at the beginning when we were talking about the blended algorithm. If that's still in control, meaning that you need to be ranked pretty highly from an organic perspective, press releases can certainly help, but it's an indirect way of helping, meaning that it's helping your website would move up in the ranks, which in turn, once it gets ranked very highly, will help you move into Maps. So it's an indirect correlation. But just generally sending press releases out doesn't have a huge impact. It can sometimes, depending on how you do it. The key there is, you want to do things like get press releases where you can get your name, address, and phone number inside the press release. But it's not the press release itself that's doing it. It's all the other lining things up. And that becoming one component of lining things up. It's basically becomes an unstructured citation at that point, meaning that it's not on Yelp, it's not on super pages, it's inside of a press release. It just gives more credibility or more for Google to chew on. But it's not, any one of these things are usually kind of gimmicky. When people say, hey, just do this, and that's all you need. I'll be the first to just call BS on it because I've done this for years and there's no one magic bullet with Maps.
Let's see, Edward, is it possible to rank in the 3-pack for smaller keywords like in smaller states with keywords, like Rhode Island, Delaware? Hey, I'm from Rhode Island, hopefully, but we'll see.
Do you mean statewide, or are you talking about if you're in a different state, somehow show up in Maps in another state?
I think what he's saying is, in those smaller states, is it viable to go after the whole state?
Not with one Maps listing, no. You're basically, when it comes to Maps ranking, if you look at the service industry model, for instance, and I kind of mentioned earlier that Google lies to us. Because when you set up a service-based business, let's say it's a plumber, what's one of the things that they do when you set up a listing? What's the radius you serve?
Right.
Okay, so it lulls you into this false sense of belief that, hey, I put 30 miles. I'm going to show up for 30 miles once I'm starting to rank. The reality is, every time you cross over to a new incorporated city, in the United States anyway, it varies a little bit, in the UK and Australia. But every time you cross over in the States into a brand new city that's its own city, you typically need a new address. Well, some people would say, well, that makes it tougher. What it does is you prove yourself in one city, and then you work with the client to go get more addresses. And guess what? And it's in this contract that I'm going to give you too. Add-on cities where you get higher price to add on this city and add on this city. So now your contract that maybe started at $1,500 a month. They want to add on 3 cities. Well, that's, another, whatever, $500 per city per month. It's a selling opportunity at that point.
All right, let's see. Al asks, where can we find the complimentary proposals?
That is on the checkout page. So when you go to the checkout page itself, so there's the checkout page and then there's a cart page. When you hit the add to cart button and you go to the actual cart page itself, just below the reviews, it kind of tells you everything you get. Just below the reviews, there's a download link to the contract and proposal. It's a combined technique that I use to try to cut down the time it takes, because most people will agree that if you send a proposal, what happens? It just sits there in a black hole for 6 weeks, and people are like, yeah, I'll get to it. If you do a combination of proposal and contract, and I'm going to be doing some training on this coming up here too, which you guys, if you end up purchasing the course, I'll add it into Agency Black, about how I can get to yes quicker using this exact type of contract. Different psychological triggers I'll use, different incentives that I can give the client to get them to say yes within 5 days instead of 5 weeks. So it's a very powerful contract, and I'm going to do a little bit of training around that as well, coming up here in the future.
Nice. The funny thing is, this is such an important thing to get those contracts, because I started doing this a couple weeks ago, trying to get businesses doing these maps. And I guess I probably didn't think I'd get people to jump on so quickly. And all of a sudden they wanted contracts. And I said, oh crap, I don't have anything to send them.
Yeah, it's really important to have, and this contract, as you'll see, is 100% geared towards a maps first approach. That's the terminology I use. You'll see it's not an SEO proposal. It's a maps proposal with a review management element to it. And you can see how I set things up, how I will charge a hefty setup fee, but I might waive it if they give me a 12-month deal, right? I do phased in pricing so that they're not wary about working with me, where it's a smaller amount for the first couple months and then it bumps up, gives me time to prove myself at that point. So there's all sorts of things that you can do from a psychological, just triggering standpoint that are in that contract. And like I said, I'll do some training on that down the line.
No, and just to clarify that, because a couple of people were questioning that. Kathleen mentioned she didn't get it. If you can go back in, I know you already purchased. I saw that earlier, but you can go back in and grab that. It's just under there. And actually, Julie just put a link. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. Vincenz, same thing. You don't have to. He's saying, do you have to purchase before you get it? No, it's on that purchase page, but you can scroll down and get it. It's up to you whether you want to purchase them. We hope that you do, but you can get it on that page. So you just go in there and then scroll down to the bottom, and it'll be there for you. So
exactly. So I'm going to try really quickly to do a reset of this. May or may not let me do it. Okay. All right. Any more questions that I can answer before I hop off?
One last peek here, and I think we've got pretty much everything. Again, if you guys had any questions about getting the download, you can reach me on Facebook afterwards. I'll make sure that you get it.
Actually, I don't even have to reset this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let's just test this together right now. I'm going to make this good for the next 120 minutes.
Right.
Was that 2 hours? I'm just going to update this. Do me a favor, Ray. Try to go back to the page after I do this and see if it shows back up and doesn't redirect you.
Okay. Give me 1 second here.
So just go to mapsliftoff.com/RL.
And right now it still says the 50 on there.
Okay. It may have already redirected you. I'm going to have to try to do a reset of this. If not, then what we'll do, Ray and I will send out an email with a different link that you can go to get the 75 off. Sorry, guys. I tried to warn you 30 minutes. I wasn't kidding.
Hey, who knew that we'd be on for 2.5 hours, right?
I wasn't kidding. But that's fine. We'll make it work.
That's amazing. So it looks like I don't see any new questions. So I think we can end it there. Again, if you had any issues with that, please, and Steve just posted, he said, clear your cache.
Doesn't work. Yeah, clearing your cache won't work usually. It actually might work now that I change it to 2 hours.
Oh, there you go.
But
you know what? Yeah, because mine's going to, hold on. Let's try this one more time. And forwarded to 75 expired, whatever that means. So
yeah, and that might be a caching issue because I just updated it so that it lasts 2 hours from the time you click the link. But if you've already clicked it, sometimes it's a caching issue. Try going. The best thing you can do is try either clearing your cache or go incognito, in an incognito window, and just enter that mapsliftoff.com/RL. And let
me try that in a nice
should work here. Let me try that too, actually.
No, in the private window, I still got the 50.
Okay. All right, well, we'll figure it out. I'm going to, even if I can't do that, what I'll do is on the 50 page, I'll just change the coupon to 75. And that way everybody gets the $75 coupon.
Yeah, Kathleen asks, she just went ahead and bought with the 50 before anyway. Is there any way to get that changed for her?
Not changed, but if you have PayPal, I can give you a credit back for the 25.
Julie said it did work for her, so that's good.
It did work. Okay.
All right, and I don't see any others. Yeah, so Kathleen, just reach out to us afterwards, and we've got your email and everything. We'll reach out to you as well, and we'll take care of that for you.
Awesome.
And I think with that, we can call it.
All right, guys.
Any of you that have any more questions after this, of course, always reach out to me on Facebook. I can answer questions there, and I can always pass them on. And if you know me, you know I'm always on Facebook, so it's very easy to get me. In fact, if you're going to go to facebook.com/RayTheVideoGuy1, and the reason for the 1 is that's my personal profile, which I get those messages faster and can reply faster than my page. So if you go to RayTheVideoGuy1, as opposed to just Ray the Video Guy, you can ask me any question. You can ask me at both, but that's just going to make life easier for you. And again, we appreciate you guys taking the time, especially all of you who have stayed all this time, because we've been on probably a lot longer than we expected. And we love the fact that everybody has stayed engaged, that you've asked questions. And for those of you who have taken action, of course, we really appreciate you. And we hope that all of you take action just by heading on over to that page. And it's, again, mapsliftoff.com/RL. And that will allow you to make that purchase and jump on in and start making money. So, Brian, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this because it's been fantastic.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. And with that, we will call it. We'll bring this session to a close. And until next time, we hope you have a great night. And we hope you take action. And again, any questions, let us know. We'll be glad to answer them for you. Have a good night, guys.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.